Push the button. Push the button.
Should be live. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Now we just have to wait for the ad to finish.
Is there an ad?
Yeah, 5, 4,
Oh, I have to
3,
mute myself.
2, 1. And here we are. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another stream. This is our Geek Greet, where we talk with game designers, discuss projects, Kickstarters, and then after that, pretty much anything geek related that comes to mind. We're not scripted today.
I don't think we're scripted anytime.
True. Yeah, so today we have Aster, who is now running a Kickstarter. He will be telling us about this. And we have Alex joining us once again. And of course, my name is Kit. I'm CEO of Fool's Moon Entertainment. With us today is Rezo and Zed.
Hi.
Hello.
So to get the ball rolling, Aster, you're starting a Kickstarter, I believe, today.
Yes, thank you, Kit. I've been working with you guys to publish Project Paragon. It's a 5e supplement for those of us that are still playing D&D after Wizards' recent behavior.
Obviously not a sponsor.
Oh, yes.
No,
Hashtag not fun. The people that were trying to put us out of business 3 weeks ago. But basically the idea is it's a supplement to add a lot more development to the games, like racial mechanics, where right now you sort of pick a race and then that's it. You get whatever benefits you get, and that's sort of where it stops. Which, especially with a lot of the races that are more similar to humans, can lead to a lot of non-human characters feeling like human plus, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
So the idea is it basically introduces race-specific backgrounds that give you, traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws that correlate to the sort of lore for that race's culture. And then there are a bunch of unique feat options that you can get by using a separate system of progression from the game's normal experience or milestone. It's called narrative experience. And basically the idea is similar to some other games like Vampire the Masquerade, not sponsored, obviously. You accrue a separate experience points for doing, role-play related stuff, playing your character's traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, etc. And then you can use those narrative experience points to purchase the feats. So you get some more powers related to your character's race. So like the two example races we have, Aasimar and Tieflings. The Aasimar are sort of celestial born, for anybody who doesn't know. And the Tieflings are the inverse. They're like fiendish ancestry. And this Aasimar one gets like celestial powers, like you can cast a lot of charm spells and like command and stuff like that, and you get wings. And the Tiefling one similarly gets devilish features.
Josh, nice to have you join us.
Hey. Oh, hello. Sorry. Didn't mean to ramble there.
No, that's not rambling. That was getting to the point. So this is kind of like the study XP from Mage, as an example, right? Where you have kind of a separate pool for generating new things.
Yeah, similar in concept to that.
Yeah, I've been seeing, if you've ever looked at Advanced 5th Edition, which has come out, it's also called Level Up. They have effectively racial feat trees, where you get one feat, if you hit the prerequisites, then you can take another one later and another one later. They have shapeshifters, vampires, revenants. They also use them for kind of like archetypes as well. So it was an interesting shift.
Yeah. It is kind of similar, actually. It's less feat trees, but more just, like how 3.5 had feats that required other feats.
Yeah.
But actually, the idea of Paragon came from 3.5 too.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I'm sure some of us remember.
Yep.
They had Paragon classes, which were you could take levels in your race, basically, for anybody who might
3
not.
levels. The other thing they had was they had basically Bloodline, where you would pick up some special abilities every so many levels. You could be like doppelganger blooded or dragon blooded or whatever.
Yeah, bloodline levels were whack though, because there was like a really weird trick of the wording with them where you could end up sort of abusing them by getting like multiplicative levels. If you had like the prestige classes that would give you, levels in other classes. It was a whole thing.
It was. 3.5 got really weird with the Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah, they really let loose when they were publishing stuff for 3.5.
Yeah. Also, the buying off of your class levels. Like if you had like a +2 CL, you could buy that off at, I think it was like level 6 and level 12.
Oh, yeah.
That was weird. It's fun, but it was weird.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the project.
Yeah, so there are, it's going to be at base, if we meet our base goal, 15 of these sort of paragons. We have 14 specific ones, which are Dragonborn, Aasimar, Tiefling, Dwarf, Human, Elf, Half-Elf, Half-Orc, Orc, Goblin, Gnome, Genasi, Goliath. Damn it, I am forgetting one. I am so sorry. This seems so unprofessional.
Nah, no, that's fine. I know what it's like. But so basically what they have in the core rulebook plus a few of the others.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we basically imported, other than the, core PHB races, we added races that felt like they added narrative symmetry to some of the other ones. Where like we had Tiefling in because it's in the core book, and then we added Aasimar because they're sort of like the inverse, and we added goblins as sort of like an inverse of gnomes or halflings. It was halflings was the one I was forgetting.
Everybody forgets the halflings.
Yeah, it's kind of their whole deal. It's actually ironically part of the mechanics that we made for them.
I've always felt that Aasimar should have equal love to the Tieflings. If the Tieflings in a book, so should the Aasimar.
Yeah, I feel like the Tieflings are just a little more popular because they're a little edgier.
Of course.
The Tiefling Warlock is sort of a trope for a reason.
Yeah. I'm more of a fan of the Aasimar, though. But I have played Tieflings, and they can be fun, especially when you break the mold.
The Tiefling
I don't
Paladin.
know. I think other than maybe Gnome, Gnome might be the only race I haven't, or the only race in the core book I haven't played.
Yeah.
And then I played most ones too.
Yeah, and 3.5, I played a Tiefling Warblade. That was fun, especially because we had Gestalt classes, and my Gestalt was fighter, so all the feats.
Yeah, of course. That fighter was just a vehicle for feats.
Yeah.
Same thing with Wizard, but for casters.
44 armor class by 10th level, and on the first round of combat, I do 150 damage.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of those bloodline levels earlier, I had a character. The reason I know how those are so broken is because I had a character where I dipped into like 3 prestige classes from like 3 different books that let me advance levels in a previous class. And then I took a bunch of bloodline levels which were multiplicative with those prestige classes. So by like 13th level, I could do like 700 D6 Eldritch Blast or something insanely stupid.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It was so dumb. It was incredibly stupid. It was like a high level, short game that we only played for a little bit. And the idea was min-maxing the hell out of it because it's 3.5.
Yeah. I think Pathfinder's done a better job with that, though.
Yeah, I've not played Pathfinder 1e. I've played a little bit of Pathfinder 2e. I personally prefer sort of more rules-light games rather than going in the other direction.
I like
5e,
crunch.
I feel like 5e is like a midpoint that way.
I'm a crunch person. I like the idea that players get lots and lots of options to fool around with.
I was a crunch person before I assumed a bunch of adult responsibilities, and now I find I do not have the time to be a crunch person.
What was that, Alex?
I played, actually my entire, most of my DMing background is in Pathfinder 1e, right? I did that for 5 years. I did 7 campaigns, right?
Wow.
Maybe over, a good 300 sessions so far. I had a 50 player setting, where all of these players slowly advanced their setting as they moved through different seasons, and there's characters would eventually get to finish their campaign, and then they would become the title tier, and then they would become the head honchos, and then another group of players would go through the campaign on a different storyline that that would be hidden from the title tier and like whatever, not whatnot. It was a nice experience. What I will say about Pathfinder 1E is that I very much enjoyed the system. When you get to a level of familiarity with the system, it's stagnant to new players. Right.
I see.
Yeah. So what happens is that you have these people who that literally read all of the classes, know where they can get like this weird great sword fighter that can wield like twice the size category weapons, heavier than everything else, and how they can like min-max this specific kind of thing for this kind of character. And then you have all of these other player characters, right? Or players, and you want new people to join your campaigns, and they don't know what they're doing. And then you add on any kind of like third-party integrations, even if they're balanced. And then it just gets a lot worse, right? Because of the new players know how to use these new things, and the old the old players know how to use these new things, and then the new players don't.
Yeah.
So it very much felt like I couldn't get new players to join the campaign. Like they weren't exactly having fun because there were Munchkin players on board. If that makes any sense.
It makes a bit of sense. I haven't really had problems with Munchkin players. It really depends on how you utilize the Munchkins. Like, for example, I'm a gross power gamer. When you talked about somebody having a two-handed sword two size levels higher than them, I actually have that kind of character.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking like the 15-year-old kid with the 22 strength carrying a Kopesh that is one size greater than him. Casually, I've done this. It's fun. The trick, though, is that a game master, if they know their stuff, it's a combination of controlling the spotlight, who is going to be in the spotlight at what time, and getting the Munchkin to work for them to help the new players. If you can get that, then it's usually not a problem. And so when the Munchkin goes, no, this is all about me, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah. It never got to the point where it was just about that, but like when you got these Munchkin players supporting other people with long lists of buffs, they take this paper, right, and there's 50 buffs written on it, and they all stack or something, and they hand it to a new player and says, "You have that now." How am I supposed to, at what point do you I don't know. It felt a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's a conversation that should happen at session 0, obviously.
Yeah. That's entirely fair.
Yeah, in one game we had a player. He was I forgot what character class he was, but he wanted to dip monk because he had this build idea in mind that he got from online. And the game master just kind of looked at him and says, "So why is your character becoming a monk again?" And the player didn't have any answer for that, so it wasn't happening. You need to have the in-character excuse to go along with it.
Can I just say, this might be a bit of a hot take, but character build that he got online are the most disastrous words I can ever hear in a game if I'm running it.
I do my own insanity.
I don't like ban multi-classing, but my general rule is if you want a multi-class, you have to pitch it to me privately what class you want to take a level in or whatever, and why your character is doing that.
Yes, definitely.
Very narrative heavy games.
Yeah.
Which is also sort of the idea with Paragon, is to help sort of immerse players in the role play. And there's actually tools for the GM to help create a narrative and structure an adventure, things like that. Yep. The tarot element of the project comes into play. It's not just a cool aesthetic thing, I promise.
You should talk about that, since you only just brought this up now.
Yeah,
what's this about the tarot element?
So there's a tarot deck that is part of the project as well. It's got fully illustrated major arcana, and then we have a sort of simplified minor arcana. But if we hit our biggest stretch goal, they'll all be sort of fully individually illustrated as well.
I saw the cards. They look nice.
Yeah, Purple Llama art team did a great job with them. We were very happy. The Asimar stained glass one is my favorite. But that's the Justice card, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, so they factor in not just in how the paragons are characterized, which that is part of the sort of lore element. We have like sidebars on all the paragons talking about like what their culture is and tips for role playing them.
Yep.
It's in the promo preview that's available on the Kickstarter page, of course.
Got the URL for us?
I can send it to you right now.
Yeah, pop it into the Steam chat, and then we can also add it to the YouTube video later.
Yeah, I saw the tarot deck as one of your rewards, and I was like, I don't know what this is for yet. I don't.
Yeah, it's in the it's so other than characterizing the paragons, it is also for GM tools that we have in the book. They're not in the promo because they're not play tested yet, and we don't want to sort of give the wrong impression. We want to put our best foot forward, of course.
Yep.
So those will be coming later if we meet our goal, obviously. But they basically rely on doing a tarot reading with the cards, and then each of the cards has sort of a narrative or sometimes mechanical significance to the like arc of your story.
Yeah.
If you pull like a lover card, then a player character might meet a love interest or something like that.
Yeah. So Josh, got anything to say?
Yeah, I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Josh. I also go by Lone Colossus Games. That's the business that I run. I do a lot of game design for 5th edition, and I've also designed some new TTRPGs. Primarily, the one that I have coming up for Kickstarter is called Wormlings. It's a really adorable, wholesome, all ages game. It's inspired by shows like Steven Universe or My Little Pony. Very it came from, so my last campaign was a 5e supplement called Injuries and Vile Deeds, where I added villainous character options and stuff to 5e, and that's because I run very dark fantasy themed 5e games, or just, I guess, sort of the crunchier games that I run tend to be grittier. And so both myself and my players kind of got into this point where it's like, we want to do something that's just really wholesome and everything's good. We know everything's going to be okay in the end. The heroes aren't going to suffer, horrible, consequences for, not succeeding. And so I came up with this one shot, and it was originally put together with Fate. But that was even too crunchy for what I wanted. So I ended up building this new system, and it's kind of geared with, and you can use it as an intro to TTRPGs. It's also super quick to learn, so you can run it for one shots. The book's going to come with a bunch of adventures. The rules themselves will fit into a fairly short number of pages. So most of the book is going to be adventures and setting information for Dragonsdale, which is kind of the setting that I came up with for it. So the idea is, you're playing as young dragons, wormlings, and you're going on adventures with your friends. And it could be, we're going to go save our friend from an evil wizard that kidnapped them. But it could also just as equally be, our friend's birthday is tomorrow. We haven't thought of a birthday present for them. We need to figure this out now.
Love that.
Did you have an ad for that on Facebook? I think I saw it.
Yeah, I'm running ads on Facebook. So
I've seen it. It looks absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
Hey, advertising works.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
Yeah, so it's a Bright Hook setting, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Kit, I did send you the link.
Okay. Where?
Discord.
All right. I will grab it. Thank you. There we go. There you are. Yeah, I have been sharing this around. I was just thinking we can post it into the Twitch stream so people who are there can see it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we can post it on YouTube afterwards.
Myself, my laptop cannot run this Zoom call and also the stream simultaneously. It will simply perish.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Josh, you got a link to yours?
Yeah. Do you want that just in Zoom chat, maybe?
Yep, just drop it in Zoom chat and then I'll add it to the stream. There we go.
I'll take a look at that now as well.
I was quite happy as soon as he described it, I was like, wait a minute, I think I've seen this. And I'm glad that I actually could find it on that Facebook just fed it to me. So there we go. They're now up in the stream chat for people who want to go check them out.
Honestly, reminds me of Spyro a little bit.
Yeah, a
bit,
few people have commented about that. Yeah, it's I mean, Spyro's a baby dragon, so.
I made a joke, and funny enough, it was I was reminded of it actually today. Facebook's doing in the past. You made these posts on this day. One was combining Grimdark with Bright Hope, so you would have like Bright Dark or Grim Hope, and what that would do as a campaign setting.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of run. So I said that I run like gritty games, but they tend to be. I describe them, I guess, as like noble dim, right? It's like the world is full of good people, and there are a lot of people who want to do the right thing. But just like real life, there's also some terrible people and they have a lot of power. And so there's often this, like, we're going to fight against that. But then also just at the edges of the world, all of the things that you don't quite see, like the mysterious things, those are all dark and scary and terrible and awful. And so when you go on adventures, you're always going to run into these terrifying creatures. And so I guess, yeah, it's kind of where I was landed with my campaigns.
Yeah. I think the way I describe Bright Dark campaigns is that the world itself looks like dark and shadowy and stuff, but there's these little pinpoints of light where you can find security and everything is fine, like a little tavern or a hole in the wall restaurant and stuff, and just places where you can relax and show that there is good there. And I think what I did for the Grim Hope was that the world sucks. The heroes come out, they go to do the right thing, and every time they succeed, it actually has an impact on the setting and it doesn't backslide. So there's always the goal in sight and you always almost make it. You never quite make it to the end, but every step you take is a net positive for the world around you.
See, I mostly run like, thriller or horror style games, especially like Vampire I mentioned earlier. So for me, it's less of a worry about backslide and more of a worry about what are the possible repercussions of every action the party is taking.
Yes.
Games like Vampire, it's really easy for me to GM because it's like, oh, what happens next? The worst thing that could happen happens next.
Lords of Gossamer and Shadow is sort of like that. You have stuff on your character, which is either good luck, bad luck, or zero luck. But the characters are effectively demigods. Wherever they go, they pretty much control the environment. And somebody was like, well, then what's the point? And I said, the point is, yes, you can do this thing. Should you? And what's the consequence? And that is the key element, I think, for those games. It's like, yes, you could just dominate an entire realm yourself and become the God King. Should you do that? And what happens if you do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had this came up in a session yesterday at Pathfinder 2nd edition, because I was telling the players we're just getting started and we're all learning that the way that they handled the experience was that every level is just 1,000 XP to level up, and it's not like this scaling crazy like hundreds of thousands of XP that you need like you had in 3.5 or in 5th edition. And so they're like, okay, so does that mean I can just like I could keep killing goblins for, or villagers or whatever, just, the standard murder hobo thing and just get XP for every level? And like, I mean, I think at higher levels, if you did that, you wouldn't get XP from killing the villagers. You get XP from fighting off all the heroes who come to try and stop you.
Yeah, you've just started laying waste to the kingdom. Even if you're, a demigod like in that one game, I think it's a pretty popular narrative trope that immortality is only good until you give people a good enough reason to find a way to kill you.
Yeah.
When you learn the reincarnation spell.
Yeah. Oh God, that anime, World's Greatest
Exorcist.
Yeah, the world's greatest exorcist reincarnates into a fantasy realm. Wow. Especially the most recent episode. Oh my, I didn't see that coming.
All right. Okay, it's going on my recommended list. Okay.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with that anime. I did not see a lot of the things that were coming out with that one.
Honestly, the only anime I've been watching recently is Boruto, and then My Hero once I get caught up on Boruto. But
I see. You are still uncultured.
I've watched plenty of. If we want to talk culture, we can talk about culture. But shonen anime are not what I watch when I'm looking for culture.
Hentai
Okay.
doesn't count.
Bofuri has been kind of fun. I mean, that's a very laid back anime.
Mm.
Yeah, but no, the greatest exorcist. That's up there with the world's greatest assassin reincarnates as an aristocrat. That one is
was
just
good.
great.
I
I can't
haven't
wait for
even
second
heard of that
season.
one.
Yeah, I need a second
yeah.
season of that.
Basically, the greatest assassin on Earth gets assassinated by his own group. Goddess picks him up out of nowhere and says, "Yeah, so I need you to kill the hero in this realm. Are you up for it?" And the assassin's like, "I have a few questions." When he gets the questions, he's like, "Yeah, sure, okay." So he reincarnates into an aristocratic family.
Mm.
With
An
and
aristocratic
then just like,
family of assassins.
yes, the doctor assassins. It's like they treat the people who need treating, and if there's an infection in the kingdom, they eliminate it.
Oh.
It is a really good anime. Oh wow.
I'm not normally one for isekai personally.
I've been going through a lot of isekai and just picking out the cream of the crop, and it's just they're so good.
Mm.
What do you think about Shadow of Eminence or Shadow in Eminence?
I haven't
I
seen that
haven't
one.
Like
Okay.
the first couple episodes of that the other day.
Yeah, I saw about 6 episodes of it so far. It's pretty good.
I don't like it,
Aw.
if I'm being honest.
When he was on Earth, he was Chunibyo. He wanted to be the hero. He was kick-ass. And then,
Yeah.
while trying to, phase himself into a rock, he got truck-cooned and off into another world. The problem is he gets there, he gets all the power that he wants, and then he thinks he's got to make up this narrative to keep himself going. So he's still Chunibyo. The problem is the scenario he came up with is the reality. So now he's trying to solve the reality without knowing that it's actually reality. So he's just going around continuing to pretend and killing people. It's pretty cool.
Like, I get the angle. It's just hard to tell how ironic the show is being about him just always succeeding no matter what. And also, he's like a real psycho.
Oh yeah, he was completely.
That's part of the draw. That's part of the draw.
See, I don't get that. Honestly, part of the reason I don't like isekai as a genre is generally just because I find the protagonists are usually pretty unlikable.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with that. Yeah, but like Death March to a Parallel World Rhapsody, the main character is actually quite awesome. That time I reincarnated as a slime.
I've heard good things about that one, but have not seen it.
Oh, it's
fun.
so
That
good.
one's fantastic.
Yeah,
I've watched all of the seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I'd like to tell people about that is if you want to understand how Shinto works, that is the anime which exemplifies it, because he always tries to do the right thing for the community around him. Even with his enemies, he tries to find peace with them. That is very much a Shinto mentality right there.
Awfully redemption paladin of him.
Oh yes, very much so. Especially with the Orc Lord. That was a really very few anime make me actually want to break down and cry, but that entire scene was pretty much up there.
Now I'll ask you, have you seen Anohana? Because that anime made me cry.
No, I have not seen it.
Oh, it's so good. So sad. It's only like 10 episodes long. I don't want to I can't get too much into the details without spoilering it. Because the reveal is in the first episode, so it's kind of a giveaway. But yeah, no, it's really good.
Yeah, there's an
It's
interesting
like about friends and something tragic happened, and then 10 years passed, and the friends were all broken up.
Yeah. There's an isekai coming out where I started looking at the manga and put it aside. A classroom gets isekai'd, one of the people had been isekai before and
Oh.
banished by the ruler. It is now back in again. And he's like, oh, really now? So he goes to get all his old friends, and the ruler doesn't know it's him yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, because he got isekai a second time.
Yes.
That's
When you
actually,
got
I
sent
think,
back,
the name of it.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
a guy the second time.
yeah. I was like, yeah, that's going to be interesting. There's another anime. I'm going to have to look up the name of it. It's about an elf from the hero's party after they defeated the big bad and the
Mhm.
heroes died off. The elf is going on a quest, basically trying to touch base with all the old members of her party and trying to basically find something to do with her life. It is very well done. A lot of sad parts to it, but it was incredibly well done.
So that's not even like an isekai at that point, right? It's like a post isekai.
No, that one isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not even an isekai because the hero was not isekai, but it was very much
Gotcha. I misunderstood. My bad.
Yeah, it's called Suso no Frerin. And yeah, it's like this elf is like, okay, I'm gonna go see the mage that was in our party. I'm gonna go see the dwarf that was in our party. I'm gonna go see this. And the dwarf is like, well, I have this apprentice who needs to go out and do stuff now. And like the apprentice is as old as the hero was when she first teamed up with the hero. This elf is, like hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years old. So it's like her trying to touch base and stuff and find some sort of resolution to herself. The interesting thing is the demons in that series are scary.
Love me some demons.
My favorite isekai is The Devil's a Part-Timer.
Ah, yes, that one is great. The reverse isekai.
Yeah, I've heard of that one, I think.
That
Yeah,
one
that
was
one's fun.
so funny.
That's a lot of fun.
It's the one where he goes to like work at a McDonald's, right?
Mhm.
Not a sponsor.
Hashtag not spawn.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, basically, I forget what it's called.
McDonald's
but
or something.
McDowell's or something. Yeah. Yes,
Wait.
the black pepper fries. Yeah, and when they show up on Earth, their language is basically normal language, talking backwards.
Interesting.
Yeah. The first isekai I ever saw, 1990s, was called Kiryo Karamao. This normal guy gets flushed down a toilet when somebody gives him a swirly and is the demon lord of the other realm. And it's very much a bishy. It is a bishy anime series where like he winds up with a boyfriend by accident, who's this hot blonde tsundere. The captain of the guard is this like Bishonen guy with the like military uniform, crisp haircut, just like the perfect guy. The court magician is this long silver-haired bishy guy who completely fawns over him and is like this weeping uke almost. It is just funny as all hell, though.
I think my first isekai was either Magic Knight Rayearth or Fushigi Yugi.
Yeah, those would both count.
And,
Wow, the genre's been around for a while. Like El Hazard is also in that genre.
yeah, I saw that much later than those two, though. So,
Have you ever seen the Janai and the Bugram on YouTube?
Yeah.
Somebody made a AMV called Janai and the Bugram Live, and it's done to the song Hubba Hubba Zoot Zoot.
nice.
It is great. Funny as hell.
Would you count Excel World as an isekai?
Oh, I love Excel World.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, so I couldn't tell you.
No.
I would say no.
No, you can't count it as an isekai because it's an overlay world. It's a virtual world.
Sure, but it's still a different world.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
but it's
mean,
not
like
around
SAO
line.
is an isekai, but they're in a virtual world.
So it's sort of like Sword Art Online or Bofuro.
It's actually
they're not like trapped in a world. They're not gonna. Well, they can't. Yeah, you can't really die from being in the world. Just
Okay, so
people might try to kill you because you're in that world.
So it's more like Bofuro. Okay, yeah.
So Excel World is a successor to Sword Art Online.
Yeah,
okay.
it's in the same. Well,
It's the same.
It's
it is the
Cool
same
thing.
man.
it's the same
It's like 15 years later, as I
There's
recall.
also like a weird like time travel overlap or something with it.
Oh,
I haven't read that.
Yeah, you
part
can
of
like
it, but-
enter bullet time with your VR thing. It was weird.
so
It was
Well, the
solid.
Excel, yeah, the Excel world, yeah, that did that. But the author, because it's all light novels as its like origin, and the author wrote some that were like main character of SAO goes and talks to the main character of Excel world, but they're both still like the same age as they are in their respective things. And so it's just, there's this weird like, you know, time travel via VR thing that happens apparently.
Okay.
so
Sounds wild as hell.
in one of the episodes where they're researching a brain machine interface chip, they open up a book that goes
Yeah,
back
then they
in
get
history,
the nerve
and it
device
says nerve gear.
from
uh, was the predecessor to the brain machine interface, and the thoughts behind it are that the actual Excel world was programmed by Kirito. He's the designer of that world.
yeah.
Not to spoil
Yeah,
anything for anybody. Sorry.
I always liked SAO just because it was it was the first VR or like, you know, alternate
Full dodge.
virtual world that I'd seen. So I guess my background is in neuroscience and biomedical engineering. So I was very interested in making brain machine interfaces for VR at one point. I'm still interested in it, but
Well, the technology for that's actually pretty good, even at this point in the game.
It's good, but it's nowhere near what you have for, you know, science fiction.
You and
But
I should talk after this.
you know, my one like big pet peeve with SAO was the whole like, we can use microwaves to kill you. I'm like, yeah, that no way that would make it into a device.
No.
you couldn't build
Well,
that.
I don't know. Have you heard about that new VR rig that can kill the person using it? Look it up at a point. Somebody made a VR rig and he put in a something into it so that it could quite literally kill off the user.
Right, but did that get approved for sale to people?
Probably not. No,
Yeah.
Probably not.
That's the yeah, you could totally build a device that would kill the user. That's easy to do. It's whether or not you can get it onto the market. That's another question.
The thing I want to see is I want to see a head rig which allows you to go to like the Evo tournaments for Street Fighter and stuff like that and actually play just by thought. I want to see that.
Yeah, that's what I was interested in building.
Cool. That would be cool.
Now,
There is,
of course, the trick is, would they allow it?
I think you'd have to probably have a separate game for it, like where both people are using, or you know, everyone involved is using it. The biggest issue that we're at currently with that technology is you can only decode a certain number of inputs, so you can probably only get like 3 or 4 buttons, and you can't press them at the same time. So, like, I don't know how you convert that. Maybe you could do that if it was a simple enough game, but
well, I have seen them do first-person shooters with it. So I mean, there's that at least, but that was like, oh god, it's at least 2 decades ago.
So I actually have a question about your project, Josh. Right.
Mhm.
So like Wormslings right here. Right.
Mhm.
So you mentioned about simplifying like the games and how you come from a like very crunchy background. Like what kind of simplifications did you do, and what did you choose to like what philosophy did you apply to this game so that you could make it this simplified, right? Or
yeah. So it's
yeah.
it's a very narrative focused game. So it and like I said, the first time I ran it, it was in Fate system. So it uses a 2d6 core system, and you're just trying to get successes on the dice. So it's still you want to roll high, and you get to add characteristics to the dice to get to that number. But in the base rules, that's pretty much the whole mechanic. You have your character, you have your characteristics, and you roll some dice and you tell a story. And there's some partial success stuff, and complications will pop up as you play, but it's simple enough that like someone was able to run it for their 4-year-old, right? And they picked it. Their 4-year-old picked it up and knew the rules and was playing it in, within the time span of that one game that they played. And then from there, there's going to be advanced rules. So that's going to add stuff that are like, you get bonuses in these scenarios, or you get, you have a resource that you can spend. So you have like a dragon resource that you can spend to power dragon abilities, and you have friendship tokens that you can use to power like group abilities, or get rerolls and that sort of thing. So it slowly layers on the complexity. And if you want to really well, it's never going to get really complex, but if you want more complex characters, you just start with the advanced rules. Maybe you start in year 2 or something instead of year 1. So there's going to be there's 3 different years of talents that you can acquire, and so you get access to those as you go through Dragon School.
So does the game change depending on whether or not you're using like the base rules versus the advanced rules? But I'm not talking about the characters themselves, but like, I mean, how the DM would run it, right? For example, like, is there a expansion set, right, on the advanced rules that effectively take out all of their parts, and so you can just run with the basic rules and just not expose the players to these basic like the advanced rules at all?
So most of the rules are player facing. From the GM's perspective, it's super easy to run a game. So that's kind of the other axis of this is, let's say you're a parent, or you just have GMs are busy, right? You got other games to plan for maybe, right? And you just want to run a one shot. You don't want to have to prep all these stat blocks and things that you need. So this game, the GM doesn't roll any dice. You just need to have a general storyline in mind, and then you just improvise the whole session if you want to. I like writing out things, so I'll like write out different scenes and stages along the way that I think that they're going to get to. But yeah, for the most part, it's super easy from the GM's perspective to run that. And from the character's perspective, once you know what your character does, you know what it does, right? So like, there's not hopefully gonna be any, I have to look this up, I don't remember what this thing does. All of the ways that your mechanics get added are easy to understand.
Love that.
Funny enough, I really like crunchy systems. Writing RPGs, I make narrative systems that are really quick. Yeah, like you're describing your game. I'm thinking it's like, so the game I made, Wittershins, it is a player-facing D percentile game. Your hit points, your skills, and everything is all the same roll. And I was just like, okay, whatever. The game master doesn't roll anything, doesn't really have to plot that far ahead. PCs have like 2 or 3 abilities all told, and there we go.
Yeah.
And then it's like, why do I make role-playing games that aren't the kind of thing I like doing?
I think so. For me, like, I enjoy rules light stuff for short games. I like crunchy things for really long games. So I like to run like 1.5, 2 year campaigns at least. And for that, I want a crunchy game because you're going to want to have the feeling that you are improving incrementally throughout the game. And when you aren't running a crunchy game, I feel like you don't get that as much. Sure, if you're a group, if you're good at doing character development, I don't feel like I am good at, as a player, developing my character beyond what mechanical choices I make.
Yeah.
But those mechanical choices also come from role play decisions usually.
Yes.
So like, I need those mechanics to sort of help represent how I've changed, because I'm not good at changing the personality of the character or, other things, right, that are otherwise would be narratively important to character growth. Whereas, if I'm playing a one shot, I don't have time to learn 100 pages of rules before I run this game. I just want to try a new system. So rules light, where I don't have to prep stuff, is amazing.
Yeah, my wife has dyscalculia. So the thing is, I'll make a game and then I'm like, okay, you go through character creation. I'm not going to help you. If she can actually make her character without my help, it's a good system. Like for Pathfinder and stuff like this, I'm the one who has to level up her character and make all the decisions and everything all the time. And
that sounds tough. I'm just saying, honestly, to answer the question originally was we as game masters are just lazy. We want to run something easy. But when we're players, we want that complexity. You know, we got to have all those little rules and nitpicking about our characters and abilities and stuff like that.
So you can make a character that's uniquely yours. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we're running the game, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's a couple rules. You know, we're just gonna tell a story.
Yeah, my sister for Pathfinder First Edition, she took the white-haired witch archetype from the witch class and affixed it to the ranger, making a spellless ranger who has like living hair. That was
Love
a terrifying combination. Because she also used the alternate multi-class rule where every other feat goes away and gives you a class ability, and she picked monk. So she had the ranger's natural attack specialty with her hair, with the monk's unarmed combat specialty.
That is craziness.
Love
yeah,
that.
20-foot reach hair that if it hits you gets a free grapple and a free strangle attempt.
Wild.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff my sister likes doing. And like, she makes creepy characters. It is a thing with my table. It's like, yeah, my sister is going to make a creepy character. So she'd have her character lift herself up by the hair and run along using her hair as legs.
It's Princess Entrapta, right? From
Oh, this was years before that, but yes, basically.
But
Yeah. Yeah, her more recent character she made was somebody who a couple of thousand years ago was a priestess for an Egyptian kind of setting, was buried alive by her rival. Her goddess is like, yeah, I still have need for you. Wakes her up 2,000 years later. She's basically still wrapped up in all her mummification things. She's a summoner, so her summon is a manifestation of her goddess's avatar encased around her, lifting her up so she floats around and has these two huge gauntleted hands.
Minus the big hands. Isn't that just like a lot of the mummy?
Yeah, well. So everything she like, and the thing is, because she's still wrapped up, if she doesn't have the manifestation, she basically lays there because she can't move.
Also, just real quick, because I am gonna have to hop off soon. Unfortunately, it's a little late where I am.
Yep.
But Alex said something a few minutes ago. It was a question he asked Josh about their game, but it was a little relevant to my project, so I wanted to mention too. The whole thing about having the ability to have players have these extra complex mechanics or to not have them. Is that with Paragon, we tried to make sure that you can basically, it's a supplement for 5e. It's not like a hack. So you can have Paragons in a game where everybody isn't Paragons.
Yep.
And it should hopefully still be pretty like evenly balanced, where non-Paragon characters basically get some passive bonuses. And there's a variant rule that gets them some extra like feats and stuff too that DMs can use. But the idea is basically you can have these Paragon characters who have like these whole extra feat trees they can pick from, and this separate system of experience. But if you also have players who don't want to be playing that, you can just have them play a regular character, even if they are missing out on 15 new backgrounds and over 200 new feats.
Plug.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I find with like supplements and that kind of thing is it's easy to add complexity to a system. It's almost impossible to take it away.
Yeah, for sure.
So there is one thing I'll point out. There are other systems that I think handle this a little bit better from the standpoint of adding complexity or adding options without making things inherently more things to choose from that are not necessarily balanced, or you need to find all the right options, things like that. So in my experience, I don't have a lot. I mean, most of my role-playing experience in D&D specifically that's not recent is very, very long ago. So I'm not as familiar with much of the D&D or Pathfinder stuff as a lot of the other people at the table that I play with. But what I've found is that there's other systems like the hero system I found is a good example. Again, not a sponsor or anything like that, but it's a good example of a system where you can build anything you want because it's a point-by system.
Mhm.
And the rules for generating powers allow you to make anything, but the mechanics of how you build powers are the same in terms of a general approach
Mhm.
for any kind of power that you want to make. So all powers have what they do as mechanics and special effects.
Mhm.
So the special effects can change regardless of what you're building. But the way you build the power is going to be the same. Like an energy blast, for instance, can be any number of different things, but you can build a whole variety of different kinds of energy blasts within the rules of the core game.
Yeah.
And it'll always be balanced against anybody else's energy blast because mechanically it's the same thing.
See, I can see
Yeah.
that as a strength, but it's also something that annoys me about those kind of games is if I have a unique thing, like say Fire Blast, I want it to be mechanically different than somebody's using Cold Blast
Yep.
or Lightning Bolt or whatever like
You
that.
absolutely can do that too.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't want to have to sit there and say construct it to be different. I just want it to be innately different. I always feel that a player's choices should actually matter to make them unique without having to jump through a bunch of extra hoops to do so.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't that people's complaint with 4E? Was that the mechanical options felt a little too similar?
Yeah, I've heard that as the thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is, of course, it's sometimes you wind up with too much feature creep, I think is what you would call it. I ran Legend of the Five Rings for about 8 years for one campaign, going from first edition through to third edition. Third edition, they put in a whole bunch of complexity that just wasn't necessary.
Mhm.
They were like, okay, if you have your skill at this level, you get the special ability. If the skill goes up 2 more levels, you get this special ability. So you started having to keep track of all your skill levels and what special abilities you get for each of them, on top of your clan abilities and on top of your katas and on top of your Kiho. And it was just way too much. I still consider second edition to be the best option of the bunch. But yeah, I always feel that a player's individual choices for character creation should matter for making their character an individual.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel the same way, and that's a big part of what the Paragon Project is like about. Is, you know, race is a very important choice in a fantasy RPG. In theory, you know, playing a dwarf should be radically different from playing an elf. They're like opposites, right? That's the whole trope, is like dwarves don't like elves, elves don't like dwarves.
Yeah.
Because they're different. But then when you play them, they're both basically just human plus.
Exactly.
That's why
So
we added the backgrounds that go into more detail and the feats to give you more mechanical benefits and stuff like that.
Zed's in my Pathfinder campaign. Do you feel that the demi-human races seem to stand out as different?
Sorry, say again?
Since you're in my Pathfinder campaign, do the demi-humans in my world feel different?
Well, I don't know your world that well, right? So
the Sanguine Elves, for example,
I know that an elf
Bamboo
is
Elves.
different than a human. Because I'm playing an elf. I don't really have a strong idea of what any of the other races can do.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. He's playing what's called a Bamboo Elf. They're from sort of the Japanese XP. Tall, willowy. Their homes are basically in a pocket dimension within the bamboo forest itself.
Bamboo Feywild. Okay, I can dig it.
Yeah, and all elves have, except for one type, have the innate ability that they can take animal form.
Oh,
just
fun.
Built right into them. So he's done the odd number of transformations, which has been kind of cool. Yeah. And the Sanguine Elves, they found out, were effectively crafted by a few of the gods as weapons of war against the god of chaos. So they know how to fight, and they're very good at it. Their body fluids are somewhat caustic to other races. Their special, one of the special tricks they developed was spitting in other people's eyes. They also can earth meld and travel under the ground. So,
seems a little lucky.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, again, they were crafted for war. But they lost their shape-shifting ability as part of it. They can't any positive transformation effect, they're immune to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it was interesting though, because at one point during the war, an entire army of blood elves had basically sunk into the ground. Nobody saw it, so the troops are going through, and suddenly all these elves just pop up and just start shredding them. Yeah, but now that the wars are over, the elves are kind of like, now what do we do? And they're trying to find their place in society now. So I like doing that kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, this has happened. How do the races adapt to it?
Yeah, that's funny you should mention the whole like finding their place in society thing. There's a couple of the paragons, specifically like half orc and half elf for obvious reasons, where that's sort of their whole deal is like you get some stuff that's reminiscent of the orc paragon and some stuff that's reminiscent of the human paragon or elf for the half elf. But neither race will like wholly accept you, generally speaking. So it's sort of a lot of like, yeah, the reason why they're going on their journey is to like prove themselves or to find their true inner identity.
Yeah, or find a home for themselves where they're accepted. Yeah, totally understood.
Society is overrated. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Advanced 5th edition, what they did was they separated race from culture. So you choose your lineage, then you choose a culture, and it could be a culture from pretty much any lineage, or they have their own thing as well. And I like that because one of the things I've always said is that your race is not your culture, not necessarily. What happens if Dwarf is raised by humans? I mean,
I did that for my setting but I actually made cultures for the setting, and then I just made I did species, ancestry, and culture. So you had some biological differences. So, elves are Fae descended, so they're going to have some different things that they have. And I had to totally remake humans because base human does not work in that system, which is fine because humans needed to be more interesting anyway. But then, so then I made different regions. So it's like, if you're from this region, but your ancestors are from this other region, then you're probably going to have this sort of mix of traits. And the ancestry is more like sort of adaptation oriented stuff. So if your parents are from like the mountains, but you were raised in the desert, then, maybe you would, I'd probably put like cold resistance stuff in, or, not being exhausted from cold in culture as opposed to ancestry. But there might be some, like you have, I don't know, better lungs or something.
Well, no, it
That's
makes
probably
sense.
Not a heritable trait, but I had to be a little bit.
My wife's parents are both from Southern United States. We're up here in Canada. She can't take the cold at all. She has no cold resilience at all. She calls me a polar bear because I can go through the entire winter without turning on the heat.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Oh yeah, that's not bad. So what's the temperature?
Sounds,
15 Celsius.
It just sounds uncomfortable for no necessary reason.
Yeah, and then if I go to her parents' place, I'm freaking baking there. Oh my God, it's so hot.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of weird. I was born in Florida. My parents, well, at least on my mother's side, they're all from like Ohio, Pennsylvania, snow belt regions. Yeah. And like I am always hot. And we moved up to Ohio, and we went through that first winter, and I wasn't cold. So I enjoy like much colder temperatures. And now my partner's from California, whole family from California, and she's a freeze baby. Like, I turned the AC up too high and she's cold. She's wrapped in a blanket right now, sitting 3 feet away from me, probably giving me the finger. No.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just like you said, if somebody's ancestry is from like the mountains and stuff like this, they could be living in a desert, but they have cold resistance because it makes sense. That's what the generations have built into them.
On a related note, or somewhat related note, just because we were talking about sort of separating like culture and like ancestry. Technically, so we didn't really build in any support for this because it's not really the intended cycle or like style of play. I understand the argument for separating them, but it's not the direction we went with this. But they're not technically like racially, the backgrounds don't technically have like racial prerequisites. So as long as DMs are willing to do like a little bit of legwork, sort of making some of the feats make sense, maybe it could totally, you could use a Paragon background for someone who was just raised in that culture instead of
Yep.
you know, like biologically part of it.
Like one of the things I've always wondered is like, why does this race have these weapon proficiencies as a racial trait?
Yeah, that stuff's weird.
Yeah, so with
Plus, I feel
Advanced
like
5th edition, they did separate those two things. So you have your lineage, you have your culture, then you have your background, which 5th edition normally has. And then all
Yeah.
three of those things build out who your character is.
I feel like weapon
Also,
proficiencies
get
are
the best proficiencies for the weapons too.
yeah. I feel like weapon proficiencies are one of the like least important parts of the like race selection anyway, because like chances are, like, if you're a wizard and you want to use a long sword, you're gonna have to pick some classes that let you use a longsword effectively. Otherwise, why would you use it?
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna be a blade singer or whatever, right?
I was gonna say, or just be a blade singer and be a better
Yeah.
fighter anyway.
Yeah.
Blade Singer.
So, like,
Blade Singer's just a fantasy Jedi.
Yeah.
In the system that I'm designing, I actually I'm assigning weapon proficiencies based off of skill points, right? The skill point investment instead. So like this also goes for tools, right? And then also driving vehicles or any kind of those kind of things. So instead of like there's a skill called endurance, which allows you to take or like wear heavier armor or be not encumbered by it, right? So instead of like tying it to your class or your feats or any of this kind of specific thing, that kind of thing. I feel like it's a little bit more elegant, but it also like less. It's also a little bit weirder in terms of how you're making those decisions for like, I want to invest these skill points in order to meet the requirements of this specific weapon. So it's flexibility, but it's also more of a learning curve, which I thought it was worth the trade, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're used to like D&D, maybe that doesn't, it's not immediately translatable, but there are plenty of systems that do that, and I think they make perfect sense. So yeah, I think it's a good way of doing it for a lot of things. One of my favorite non-D&D systems is the Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, Age of Rebellion.
Age of the Empire.
Uh-oh, he froze.
Oh, he
All
froze.
right.
We lost him.
You hate to see
Sorry about that. Zoom hates me.
It still hates you.
Yeah, it doesn't know what my camera is. Let's see if I can figure that out. But so you have your ability and you have your skill points, and so you kind of get to enhance, basically, for your skills upgrade the die that you're rolling. Yeah. So you get like D8s and D12s, and they don't use numbers. They have different symbols and things, but the D12s have a triumph symbol on it, which is like an auto crit or used to do special things. And so the more of those D12s that you're rolling, the much better you have chance of success. So I liked how they did that. But just, in having to invest skill points to get skills, or skills with a weapon, that just makes sense. You have to train yourself to use a weapon. You don't just start with knowledge of weapons just because you exist. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One of the things I did with the advanced story point system is that there is no skill list or weapon proficiency list or anything unless the game master specifically wants them in their game. Instead, if you have you choose your background, or you decide what your background is, and you have skills appropriate to your background. You want to perform an action, the game master says, okay, so what's your background? You mention what it is, and he goes, okay, yeah, fine, you don't have to make a roll for this because it's obvious your character is skilled. Or if it's outside of the character's comfort zone, okay, we're going to make a check, but since your character is like a professional in this field, the difficulty is low, things like that. That way you don't have to sit there with a list of 30 skills, and the player's like, well, my character would know a little bit of all of this, but I don't have enough skill points for it.
Yeah, it reminds me of 13th Ages. Again, not Spawn, but reminds me of their system for skills, which is very similar. You have an X number of like background points that you can invest into any number of backgrounds of your choice. And then when you make rolls related to those backgrounds, your bonus is however many points you invested into that background.
Yeah, like you could have, for example, I had a Forest Scout for 13th Age. So if Forest Scout applies, you get the bonus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 13th Age is pretty good for that. I'm on actually the playtest for 2nd edition.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Very good, actually. I wrote about 3 pages of notes that I sent in for the first run.
Nice.
Nice. You must have be a valuable playtester, right?
The game designers actually specifically asked me to join. A character class that I had made for 13th Age. They're going to make a variant of it for one of the future supplements.
Nice.
Oh wait, which character class did you make? I didn't know that.
If you follow Ashley Law, I made the Ruin Blade.
No, I don't follow Ashley Law, and I don't think that was or I don't remember seeing that on the 13th Age SRD.
No, it's not on the SRD. No, like I said, they're going to make a variant of it in the future. Basically, it's a swordsman class which debilitates their opponents. So instead of giving your allies bonuses or taking bonuses yourself, you're dropping penalties on your enemies that everybody gets to take advantage of, and then you can basically strip off those penalties to do like massive amounts of damage afterwards.
Huh, that reminds me.
Cool.
Weirdly reminds me of how a couple of the characters in Warframe played.
Yeah, actually, Warframe. Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Yeah, they had a
break.
similar.
I will be right back.
All right, take care. See you soon.
I think.
Yeah.
I was gonna say probably a good time. I also am gonna. I have to, get going. It's getting a little late here.
Yep. Well, you take care. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun hanging out with you all, and have a good rest of your stream.
Yep.
Good luck with your Kickstarter.
Yeah. Good luck with the Kickstarter.
Thank you very much. We're already like 25% funded after a couple hours. That's
nice.
Yeah. But anyway, have a lovely night.
Yep. You too. Take care. Okay, so what else should we talk about today?
I was going to say we brought up 4E earlier. One of the things I liked about it was that healing didn't have to come at a cost to like being able to do other things. Yep. So like most healers had I do damage, and also, by the way, some allies get healed, or it's like a minor action to heal people. So you had these powerful like healing word type abilities. I also just generally liked the healing surge thing that it had. So, you were limited in how much healing you could take in a given day. And it wasn't like, oh, do we have a healer who has spell slots for this? Or, it's just, no, it's just, you can only get this much healing. And once you're tired, you're tired.
Yeah, one of the designers for 4th edition was actually part of 13th Age. So all characters have healing surges, usually about 8 of them. And then they roll their level in hit dice to basically recover hit points every time they pop off a healing surge.
Okay, so that's like the variant healing surge from 5e, I think, then.
Yeah. You're saying, Alex?
I feel like I'm familiar. I've played 4e maybe about 5 times. I'm not as experienced as the other systems here, but I feel like the healing surge, right, is a way that the devs try to introduce, right, more permanent damage or a attrition system over multiple battles of the day. But I feel like in doing that, right, they could have made it a little bit more streamlined than the way that they did. Right, it makes sense with the kinds of characters that D&D has, and there are already subsystems that they're in. But I felt like if they could combine that with like a different thing and take apart part of their original system and then put it back together, they could have combined it in a more elegant way. But I don't know, that's just me.
How did you feel it wasn't like streamlined, I guess?
So it's how much you can benefit from like a specific healing surge. So let's take like a one of the potential ways that I thought about how like you could reduce the amount of healing, or you can make that attrition, right, factor into like multiple battles, right? Let's say when you take a certain amount of damage, right, there's always a small amount of damage that you can't heal again. So basically, like for every 5 points of damage, right, 1 point of that damage becomes this permanent, right, fatigue almost, right, like, but like permanent reduced to your max health, right? That's a very basic system, right? I don't know if it uses the same amount of well, complexity that 4E would use, and you need to do a lot more maybe with it. But like that's just a simple system. It's and reading it for the first time, like the players know exactly how this works and exactly what it does, and it's okay. I can't keep getting hits and then be healed up to full every turn, right? Because eventually those are going to wear down even the toughest opponents with it as many healers as possible. Well, I like that sort of thing, right? I guess there's a lot more complexity that should be put on such a system if you're going for a more tactical game or a deep game with like character traits and whatnot. But like, I mean, it's just a simple, like, for every 5 points, right, of damage you take off 1 point, that's penalty to your max health. That's
Yeah, I mean, that does add more math, right? So like you're already asking a player who may or may not be good at math to be subtracting, say, 37 hit points, and it's like, okay, wait, what is 37 divided by 5? Am I rounding up on that last one? Do I take off an extra hit point? So like there is definitely something there where I'm sure that sounds like a really cool addition to it. But maybe actually the Pathfinder 2nd edition variant with stamina is probably a really great way to do that, right? Where your first like 75% of your hit points or whatever, you can get back, right? If you take that in damage, that's fine. That's just stamina. As soon as you hit below that, your healing no longer affects that. You have to rest to get that back. So that would be a way to do it, I would say.
I think one way they could have done it is that after a significant battle, and the game master decides what's a significant battle, you roll your hit die plus whatever modifier, and you just get your hit points back right there for that. And that's your second wind effectively. If the battle's too quick or too easy, you don't get it, but the harder the fight, the more of a benefit you get at the end of it. That way you don't have to keep track of healing surges or how many hit dice do I have left for the short rest or anything like that.
What I like about healing surges, though, is that it's, how much hit points, how how many hit points you're going to get back from a healing ability, unless it's like, a D6 or something here and there, right? But it was also a thing that you could use for potions. So if you wanted to drink like a potion of fire resistance, a lot of times it would be spend a healing surge. You gain resistance 15 to fire for the next, encounter or whatever. And so I like that, having that as a mechanic. And I've started using hit dice in 5e that way too, where it's like, oh, you want to do this cool thing? Okay, spend, X number of hit dice for this. Or
I wanted to build a class around that, actually.
There's a really great, I think probably the first hit die mechanic class or subclass, I guess, that I saw was the Winter Wizard, I think, it was in, I want to say like the first Arcadia release from MCDM. I'm trying to remember who made that. Someone really cool.
Yeah, I wanted to make a class called the Marcher Knight, which would take disadvantages and permanent degradation to get additional powers over time. Never actually got to finish that character class, unfortunately.
So would that be something like at this level you can choose to give up this thing permanently and then you get this feature type?
Yeah, basically, like one of the examples was the character might lose will take like 4 points of strength damage and get this buff that they can use for other stuff. Or is like at this level you can take, if you want to, you can take a liability. So the character is blinded permanently, but gets these other things, and as the character goes, they can start sacrificing hit dice or other stuff. But these sacrifices come with a benefit. Yeah, so
Sounds
that,
like a great like Cthulhu worshiping, cult member
nah, this was
class.
supposed to be a hero class.
Well,
but
yeah, but like I could see doing something like that for one of those classes, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah, I just recently made a class for first edition Pathfinder that I want to get published soon. It was inspired by, funny enough, my sister's character from Anima Beyond Fantasy, which was basically this woman who creates marionettes, which are self-guiding. So yeah, level 1, your character has a marionette. It can do stuff. And as you get levels, it can start becoming more and more independent to the point where you don't actually have to control it anymore. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. It's creepy. I like it. So yeah, I turned it into a character class for first edition Pathfinder. I need to get it play tested though.
If you're willing to run some Pathfinder, I'll play.
I'm running Pathfinder every Tuesday.
I'm free Tuesday evenings.
All right, well, we can talk after the stream. Yeah, how many characters, how many players do we have in that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we have 6 players. We might have space for one more though, so we'll see. I'll talk it over with the players first, make sure they don't feel overcrowded.
Sure thing.
Yeah, because we almost lost a player in Starfinder when we had another player join in. They were like, okay, it's getting a little too much. I was like, okay, sure, no problem.
Yeah, 6 is kind of a lot, so
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, like I said, I'll talk with the players first and see how it goes.
There's a question. Do you know of any systems that are like specifically designed for large groups that aren't like, I guess, just we want this to be as crazy as possible, so get as much input as possible?
Do you want to hear the answer for the first one I ever saw that actually declared such?
Sure.
White Book D&D, talking about player groups of over 50 players.
Oh God.
Yeah, they were like, so for every so many players, you're going to want an additional game master to help you with this. And I'm just like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, you're going to have 50, 75, 100 players in the game. Wait, what? Yeah.
I think that's just called run multiple simultaneous campaigns in the same world and have everyone collaborate on how that takes place, which would be really cool, but also a lot of work.
Well, funny enough, I learned about this a little bit later. So the idea was you would have this huge stable of players, and then you say, okay, so I'm running a session, and whoever shows up, shows up. Doesn't matter, and they're all basically interchangeable. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then they said, so how time passes in this game is based on real time. If you did not show up for 3 months, 3 months have passed for your character.
I ran a campaign like that. It was me doing a solo DM with a group of 20 players.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The problem, right, was, well, I had time to run it, and I prepared a lot of things, is that it did eventually devolve into what we call that Munchkin sort of mentality with like all of the sort of new players, right? And it was 20. And then also, I think I made it a little bit too close to XCOM.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so they didn't quite figure out the end plot. Despite everybody's, and because nobody was actually communicating with each other, right? Like it felt like every kind of session was almost self-contained, right? And then like one person would remember what happened with this session, but then like when they were going to task with like another people, right, they would never pass on what they actually learned about the lore or anything. So the other players would start out like completely fresh, and like then they would enter in the same mission with this person and ask, wait, why didn't I ever hear about this just now? This would have saved us so much time, right? So they like just, it really made me understand the failure in coordination that happened with being a project manager for a large group.
Oh, I can imagine. Speaking of Munchkins, so back in junior high school, I was running Red Box Dungeons and Dragons. If you know what that is, where the character classes are fighter, cleric, thief, magic user, elf, dwarf, halfling.
Okay.
So I was running a brand new campaign, first level players, and we just got into the campaign, and a few of my friends in this other Advanced Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which we nicknamed the illegal D&D campaign, asked to join in. It's like, can we bring our characters in? I was like, yeah, sure, fine. Let me see these characters. Oh, 18s across the board and 100th level. Wait, why does the character have a surfboard, sunglasses, and a ghetto blaster? Why does this other guy have a revolver? What do you mean this guy has a familiar, which is basically a baby Tiamat? Why does this person have a Star Destroyer? You know, it's just like, what the hell? And I let them in anyway, and the campaign ran well. That was what I called a trial by fire on how to game master, because I had never been a player in a campaign before that, and I was game master from day one. I had to learn to game master before I could play. So what happened was I learned it's like, it's not their special abilities, it's not their powers, it's not their weapons, it's not their magic items. It's the choices the character has to make, which is important. So I learned very early in my game mastering career, give the players things to think about. If they get into a fight and they overwhelm the opposition, okay, so that's fine. But what's the repercussions? What's the repercussions of their decisions? What moral choices do the characters have to make? That's what makes the game go. And it's also why I can handle munchkins and power games and stuff like this, because you can't prepare for those kind of things.
I mean, yes, you can if they're in your group, right? And you know that you've been playing them for a while.
No, I mean, like the players can't prepare for I have to make these moral choices in the future.
Right. Yes. And that's my favorite part about role-playing games, right? Like I love my first like main character, I guess, that I played. And this is already like several years into playing D&D, but kind of the first long campaign that I played in that was serious from a narrative perspective was an Ultimate Magus in 3.5, and she started out as a chaotic evil person, and she like immediately, I think within the first 3 sessions, joined a blood magic cult and started worshiping this really evil deity. But then like over the course of the game, it was really just, she wanted power to protect the people that she cared about. And she realized that getting that power at any cost wasn't quite the right thing to do. And then interestingly became the like prophet of that god, then was adopted as a child of that god. And throughout all of that was just fervently believing that this deity is actually a good person. And like people just don't see that they're a good person. And so her whole thing was communicating to the world that, hey, this god she's not evil. Like, yeah, her followers sometimes do evil things, but that's not her fault. Like she's been locked up for 1,000 years or more. And like, she should be free. And eventually she was freed. And because of the like behavioral shift that she started in the religious population that worshiped that god, the god started shifting toward good.
Nice. In the Friends Pathfinder, in the Pathfinder game that my friend is running, my sister decided to play a neutral evil rogue. Very, very selfish. She's traveling with the PC party because she murdered the son of the head priest of Asmodeus, back in her home city. So she's wandering around with the PCs. She's stealthing everywhere. She's now, I think, got plus 40 stealth for her character at level 12, I think it is now. But anyway, so we go into a city that was from this ancient culture, and all these buildings are different temples. She finds one for the goddess of the moon, who's dead. And she's like, okay, so how'd this person die? Oh, well, the Aboleths were tossing a meteor at the planet. She moved the moon in the way to take the hit so people would survive. And her neutral evil rogue is like, okay, I'm going to resurrect her. What? Yep, I'm going to get her brought back. That's my goal in life now. I'm going to do that. Why? Because that was self-sacrificing, and for some stupid reason, it resonates with me. So yeah, suddenly she's on this quest. The goddess of death is like, I'd really rather you didn't bring people back to life. She did her thing, leave it. Fine, you're going to do it anyway. Okay, I want you to come over to the afterlife. We're going to have a little talk. So most recent session, the PC party goes into the afterlife. They're like, okay, we're going to lead you to this one place. Goes there. Oh, look, it's the goddess of the moon and her husband that are both dead. Oh, I didn't expect that. I see. And the goddess of the moon's like, no, I don't think I should go back. I've done my thing. Fine. Okay, I got one thing to say about all this. And then the goddess is like, what's that? Thank you for saving us. And that's sort of kind of like this pout thing. So the goddess of the moon goes, come over here, looks at her for a moment. Okay, I'm putting you on the path of apotheosis. You're going to become the new goddess of the moon. I'm going to, what now? So yeah, the entire campaign has been derailed. And the game master's like, yeah, no, this is really interesting. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
And the players are all like, hey, yeah, this sounds fun. It's better than doing nothing. So yeah, the PCs are going to be going to, one of the PCs is playing a pony from Pony Finder. We're going to the Polynesian Islands to see their culture, to talk with Nightmare Moon. Then we have to go to a Magocracy, which is run by women, to get the Star Stone to achieve apotheosis. And the PCs may take a side jaunt to the moon itself at some point. Pathfinder is strange, but it's very fun.
Sounds usual. Right.
Yeah.
That's like a
Going back
normal
to
Tuesday.
oh, this is not my Tuesday campaign. This is my friend's Sunday campaign. Yeah, my Tuesday campaign, the PCs are heading south to a major trade city, going east to go into wild elf and swamp elf territory, to go into the orc nations, to go up to the Japanese XP nations to stop a war, and then may meet up with this like iconic paladin type figure to wage war against an ancient evil umbral dragon before she creates an army of undead to wage war on the rest of the world. Because there's no gods in the setting. Somebody stole the world from the gods. The gods are off somewhere else going, what the hell just happened?
I have an excellent level 1 wizard sorcerer spell to recommend. I believe it like I'll look it up and then send it to you later. But it sadly trivializes most undead encounters.
Oh yeah. I've actually had my
No, go ahead.
I actually had my PCs encounter this dragon in 3.5, Vampiric Shadow Dragon. They fought they fought her in her own lair, and she was a harder fight than the Tarask. On the way through her dungeon, they encountered a living spell, which is basically a kind of an ooze, which had this. Yeah, which had the spell Damning Darkness and Slow, and the Damning Darkness had the metamagic feat, which made it do vile damage. One of my players still punches me in the arm anytime I mention living spells, and it's been over 15 years. To try to defeat her, because she was a Vampiric Shadow Dragon, we had a halfling in the party. She took the prestige class Horde Stealer, which allows you to take normal bags and turn them into bags of holding. And you have invisibility to dragons.
Nice.
So while the PCs were fighting her, the Horde Stealer basically snuck around and just started loading up all the bags that she had to overflowing. Since if a vampire dragon loses a certain percentage of their horde, they can't come back.
Nice.
I see.
The picture for Horde Stealer is just absolutely lovely.
What level was this?
By the time they got there, they were about 15th level. She was a challenge rating 31. Yeah. The funny thing with the Tarask is like they wound up on the area where the Tarask was just getting up. It was pure happenstance because I had warned this was going to happen. So the Tarask would pick up a PC. It was going to devour him next turn. So the other PC goes, well, I have this ability to swap places with somebody. Boop. Oh, I have freedom of movement. Squips out of the grasp and just escapes. So the Tarask goes down, picks up a PC, swap, pop, picks up a PC, swap, pop, and just it couldn't do anything because the PCs just couldn't be grasped for very long. I was like, okay, that's a good tactic. I'll allow this.
That's when the Tarask whips out its atomic breath.
Death by dubstep.
So I guess the greatest I guess build, right, that I remember in Pathfinder, right, was someone who used a wizard, used the chrono spell magics, right, to duplicate himself, but then took the coven with an which wizard thing, so that he could then boost his caster level. Turns out he could boost his caster level with himself with an assisted check with his duplications that he made himself.
Nice.
He then uses wish to instantly cash what was it? Not it was binding
Oh yeah.
at any caster level, because which instantly instantly seals everything in a impossible to break chamber unless it's a construct,
Nice.
regardless of CR. That's just Pathfinder.
Yeah. I was mentioning how I consider moral choices and stuff to be an important thing for characters in campaign. Legend of the Five Rings. We had a player, Unicorn Shigenja, lost his horse in basically an evil temple type adventure dungeon thing. So he runs into this woman from a different clan. She's like, "Well, I could teach you this magic. It's very important magic. I'll also teach you how to bleed off the negative effects of casting these spells." She was teaching him blood magic, which is illegal, and taking the taint and putting it into the ground so he shows no signs of the taint. This is all well and good. The other players are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, we don't know about this, whatever." So later on, he had a spell which allows you to give people advantages or disadvantages permanently. So he's like, "Okay, so this cute caster is teaching me all these spells. I'm going to give her the flaw true love to me." And I was like, "Oh, really? You're doing this? Okay." She fails her check. So yeah, she now has the flaw true love. She is actually an Oni Lord in disguise. So pops out, huge serpentine body from the waist down, 4 arms, a huge rack of antlers. She is the Oni of basically kind of like doomed love affairs and stuff like this. That is actually her calling. So she kind of looks at him and goes, "Okay, I want you to be my husband. We're going off to the Shadowlands." And he kind of looks at her, looks at this group. Okay. Character retires. Later, he makes a character and decides, "Oh, this character is going to have the flaw that he has the Shadowlands taint." I'm like, yeah, that's not a problem. He's going to be of noble blood. Yeah, okay, that's not a problem. He's going to be Crane Clan. Yeah, okay, that's no problem. And my wife's character is a Crab Clan anti-taint. So she's keeping an eye on him to make sure that he doesn't get too corrupted. The PCs had already broken the actual official timeline by destroying the Imperial family, which is where the evil god is supposed to come out and create this big battle. So that wasn't going to happen. So during the campaign, I'm like, "Okay, you get this little whisper. Hey, if you want to beat this thing, I can give you a little bit of power." And he goes, "Yeah, sure, okay." So he gets the power. His tank goes up a little bit. "Hey, you want to beat this thing and do this thing? It'll be really cool. I can give you a little bit of power." "Yeah, sure, okay." His tank goes up a little bit more. They were fighting a corrupted elemental. And he gets, "Hey, if you want to beat this thing, show up the rest of the group. I got your back." And he goes, "Sure." His tank goes too high. The evil god comes bursting out of his chest, slaughters the demon elemental, and flies off to the capital city, triggering the Day of Thunder. His character's gone, just exploded right there in front of everybody. And the player was fine with this. He was like, "Oh, wow, that was cool." I'm like, "Yeah, you died." "Oh, yeah, that's fine." During the Day of Thunder, I had his original character come back as an NPC, riding a skeletal undead horse, wearing this demonic plate mail and all this kind of stuff. Helps the PCs fight the bad guys. And they're like, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm such and such a person. We used to be allies. I think we're even now." Rides back off to the Shadowlands.
This week's air game, Adventures in Rokugan,
Yep.
our party decided we would go to the Sacred Island where there's a kami that we've met before. And as we were working our way up, each torii gate that we passed had a taint on it.
Ooh.
And so our Shugenja, or the closest thing we have to a Shugenja, she's actually a monk, was doing rites of, purification.
Purification.
And each time a spirit would come out, and it had a kanji on its chest that meant something. And so, like this one time, it was a dog. It was a vicious dog, and they changed the kanji to goodest boy, and
Best boy.
it bonded with me. Well, as we continued up the mountain, we got to one, and it was a bear, and our monk, being the strongest of the party, just arm wrestled it basically and into submission. But the gate didn't purify because we didn't do anything with its kanji, and we all walked in, and we passed the torii gate, and it was just total utter blackness, and the only thing we could see was the path back, and everybody but my character failed their wisdom save, and so my character's in there alone, and she starts hearing a voice, and it's telling her certain things, and she's like, well, are you the goddess that we spoke to before? And says, well, I don't really have a name, and you would be so much more powerful if you didn't have a name. And I'm like, well, if I can get the information that we're after, I'll give you my name. I'll sacrifice it to you. And so my character sacrifices her name, gets all the information that she needs, comes back out, and doesn't tell anybody what's happened there. Just says the place where we need to go is this place. And they're like, okay, cool. And they're like, but what about protecting our clan? We want the kami to protect our clan. And so they finished the purification. They changed the bear's symbol, and it goes away, and it clears all the path, and we go up to the kami. And obviously my character didn't talk to the kami, talked to the nameless one. And like, she has set tea places for everybody but my character. She has a place for everybody to sleep except my character. She never speaks to my character. And it took the party an entire day to realize that this kami was not speaking to my character because she couldn't see her.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's kind of where we left off. We're like, okay, so, and we ended up, like, the rest of the party ended up convincing her to join the duel. So, she's now going to leave her mountain and come with us. And so that's kind of where we left off. And, she still hasn't recognized me, and only the Shugenja really has kind of figured it out.
So, how much do you know about Legend of the Five Rings lore?
Not really a lot.
Okay, because I know exactly what you did and what's happening, and I'm just like, oh crud.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I already sensed that it's not been a good thing.
So,
because we have been told about the nameless one before.
Okay, so we had a character in our campaign who got a Kageyakin, basically a shadow brand from the Scorpion clan, which gives really cool shadow powers. So,
I got one too.
Of course you did. So the PCs wound up going to the Dragon clan to rescue Shorsuro, and part of it was the PCs are given these tests by the Dragon clan. And this guy had it was like, I can give you this benefits, but you have to sacrifice that shadow brand and release the power that it's been giving you. And so, he was given a tattoo basically to help with this purification. He decided he didn't want to be purified. The PC party got to watch him melt into a puddle of shadow and flee. Yeah. We never got that one resolved, but yeah, playing with shadow is not a good thing in L5R.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. Again, my character thought, this is how we're going to get the information.
Yep. No, I totally understand. It's very interesting. So you said, did you actually say that you gave it your name?
I gave up my name. I sacrificed.
Oh, gave up. Okay. Because if you gave it your name, that could have been very interesting.
Well, when it departed, it did say, I'll come with you. I'll come to you with a task later on. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, I didn't give you my name. I just sacrificed it. It's gone. And I gained the ability to create a shadow clone of myself. So that's the shadow brand I got.
Yep. It's interesting playing around with the Lying Darkness. I'm kind of curious to see where that's going to go.
I am too. The game master has hinted though that we are very close to the end of the campaign, so
Oh,
Might be an epilogue thing.
how long does your campaigns tend to last?
It really depends. We did a BattleTech campaign, same game master, that lasted a lot longer than this, about 6 months, and then we're actually returning to that session, but as different characters with a different thing. Like we're not messing with mechs. We're just going to be on Laconis as Cyberpunk.
Nice.
Yeah, and then when that's done, then we're returning back to the heavy metal campaign. So.
One thing I found really amusing was with 5th edition Shadowrun, you could actually make mecha.
Yeah.
Like BattleTech mecha. They had the rules for it in there, and I was just like, oh, this is fun. I took a GMC Banshee and turned it into a walker.
Well, so our game master actually is using the Savage system and wrote his own BattleTech game based off of the Savage system. So it's been pretty good.
Yeah, my players didn't like the Savage system.
Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard a lot about that, but I've heard that it's very unbalanced and a little bit clunky to run.
Clunky, yes. Unbalanced, I don't care about that.
Yeah, it also depends on which version. There's like rifts and whatnot. So he's been doing a lot of balancing and changing things to make it work better.
I had all the core books. I made my own setting, and about 4 sessions in, the group just realized, yeah, this system doesn't work for us. So I picked up a different game and ran that. It's rare that it happens, but just every now and then we look at a game engine and go, yeah, no.
Well, I'm working on a game engine, so.
Yep.
We'll see.
What are you working on?
So right now it's kind of loosely based on 4 stats and 6 skills. And I while we've been talking, I've actually been kind of like working a little bit on it in my head, and I'm not sure if I want to use D12s like I originally planned, or if I want to use 3D6. Don't pout.
I pout. The poor D12 does not get enough love.
I did like it originally, but the way that I have skill checks working in my system, eventually it's going to be like 1 through 10 is a success, and 11 and 12 is the failure point. And I kind of like to have a bigger of a failure point,
No, you mean like GURPS?
I've never played that one.
Oh, yeah.
So basically what you do is every check is you take one of your stats and one of your skills, you add it together, and then you roll your dice and compare it, and you got to get under that as a success. And if you roll under the skill, then it is a critical success. And you need multiple successes. That's the difficulty check is based on the number of successes. And then I've been working on a magic system where the characters can build the spells on the fly with a flow chart. And the more stuff that they add to it, the higher the energy cost, or the more spell potency they have to have, or the higher the difficulty is to cast it. And every time they add something to the spell, they have to pick 2 of those things, either adding to the difficulty, adding to the mana, or adding to the spell potency cost. And so basically, like, a base spell is pretty much free, but it only does 5 damage. And then you start, adding up. It's like, okay, well, I want 5 more damage. Well, that's going to cost you a mana and a difficulty, or a mana and a.
I want an area effect. I want a duration. I want enhanced rage.
Right.
I do like the sound of that system. I would love to see it fully fleshed out. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on it for a little while. My original, when I first joined Fool's Moon, I was hoping to get a little bit of help with that. So.
It was very chaotic at the beginning. The first year, it was absolutely nuts. I think we're a little bit more organized now. You just, you have to tag me from time to time if you want me to, peek in on stuff.
Well, my problem is I've got the mechanics down, or at least I'm working on the mechanics and getting them down. It's the presentation, like
layout and stuff.
I've never written a full book. Like I can just go details of how the game plays, but it needs fluff.
Yeah, fluff is the part that I suck at.
Yeah, and so
Who
otherwise it
could
would
help
be
you with
like
the fluff?
it'd be like 10 pages, and most game systems are closer to 100 or 200.
Yeah, guys, yeah, no.
But
I'm sure we
that's
can probably
not-
find somebody to help you with the fluff.
Yeah. You also don't I think this is something that all of us as game designers, we all look at books and we're like, yeah, I want my game to be this big book. It doesn't have to fill up all of that, right? Like with
Oh, yeah.
Wormlings, the actual mechanics are maybe 20 pages or so, and I'm going to fill the rest of that with adventures and setting information. So like you don't have to fill it with mechanics or extra stuff. You also can just print a 20-page game, right?
Yeah,
Or make it 20. Yeah.
I was going to say the nice thing about my system is it doesn't have a genre. It doesn't have a setting. You can literally just throw the rules up because
Sure. So you could write a bunch of different genres for your adventures, right? That you would present, and then that would be your way of introducing it.
That might be,
or you just make it small.
Yeah. Right now too is the system's working title isn't really PG. It's because it's the 4 stats are physical, intellect, social, and special.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
So SIPs.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with 6.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, with the way you said you building magic or like building spells on the fly, are you envisioning this as you could go through and you could build some spells you'd have on hand that you already know as a player, yeah, I could use these this way, and then you get into a situation where it's like, oh, I need this different thing, let me just build that real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
cast on the fly.
idea.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I've always played in all these different game systems where all the spells are pre-done.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I've always been like, but I want magic missile to be ice, or I want fireball to be lightning.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, balancing freedom of construction with playtime is, I think, always the tricky part, right? And so like when you have all these decisions, then you just really amplify decision paralysis, which is already an issue if you have a spell list. So there's definitely that, but I love that freedom. So yeah, I think that's, if you can get that to work well, it's going to be really great.
Hero system lets you do that kind of thing too, because you can build your spells in advance and you can have a variety of them in a power framework. And they can all do slightly different things or very different things. And you can have modifiers on them that allow you to change them on the fly. There's a thing called a variable advantage. There's another thing called variable special effects.
Variable power
that allow
pool.
you to modify your abilities on the fly. There's also something, if you're wanting something real flexibility, called a variable power pool, which says, I have this reserve of points. I can use it on the fly to build anything.
Yep. That showed up in Mutants and Masterminds, Silver Age Sentinels. Champions came up with it first, but all the other game systems that do superheroes are like, yeah, this has to be a thing.
So I actually have a question here, right? So like when I'm hearing about the system of like build your own kind of spells, like and this kind of thing, it reminds me a lot of Pathfinder meta magic feats. If you're familiar with the Pathfinder meta magic feats, or if you're familiar with the alternate magic system Pathfinder, like rules which had the old name rules, which you could design a spell off of a certain word. And then
Words of Power.
Words of power. Yeah, there we go.
I loved
it. I don't see on the surface on how this is different from like both of those, right? Or like I don't know. Yeah.
Can I step in for?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I step in for a suggestion? So for a game engine I made a while back, I made it so that the magic system was built around various things: duration, distance, area of effect, power, things like that. And the player basically just interlocks them, which gives the difficulty plus the essence cost of the spell. It's different from Words of Power because Words of Power you usually have to pre-prepare, and you're very restricted on which words you have makes what effects you can do. what I think Reza was talking about, and the same thing I did, is you don't have those restrictions. You, like with my setting, you had a style of magic like witchcraft, infernalism, shadowmancy, things like that. And your spells would be flavored that way, and you have a few abilities which help with that flavor. But it was open-ended. You made whatever it is you want. Is that how yours works,
It's a
Reza?
more rules light version of it, would you say? Okay, cool.
What do you think, Reza? Is that about the same?
Kind of, yeah. Some of it kind of went over my head a little bit, but it's mainly because I'm a little exhausted. So,
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I guess the best way to would really be to play test it. I haven't play tested the system yet, except once. And at that time, it did not include the magic system. All it included was the 4 stats and the 6 skills. I was testing that to see how it worked, and I ran that with a cross setting of Pokemon and Fallout. It was called Pokemon Aftermath, and it seemed to work really well.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. None of them.
Nothing's a sponsor.
Yeah, nothing's a sponsor. But it seemed to work really well. I only played a couple sessions, and I was really pleased with how well it was working. So,
Well, I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. Why don't you do a 3-session thing?
That's possible. It wouldn't be 3 sessions. It would only be 2 because one of them's
End of the month. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so just do a 2-shot.
Well, yeah, maybe. If everybody's up for it and wants to give it a try.
Yeah, we could.
Speaking of freeform,
Oh, I was gonna say, obviously it won't be Pokemon Aftermath. It'll be
obviously.
yeah.
One of the game systems, the first game system I ever saw with an open magic system was Maelstrom. Done by Puffin Press, if I remember correctly. It's set during the Tudor period of Earth, and you can play a magic user. Those were stinking rare because whenever you went to cast a spell, the first thing that was asked was, how plausible is this specific event to happening naturally? The less plausible it is, the harder it is to cast the spell. And then it was like, what components are you using to make the spell happen? And the less likely such components would come into play, the more drain checks you have to make. And if you botch any of this, you open what's called a maelstrom and you get sucked up into another dimension, exit the character.
Oof.
But there was no limits on what you could do with magic. It's just how much do you think you could take? So when Mage the Ascension came out and they were saying that it was going to be an open magic system, I was like, oh, it might be like this. Well, sort of, just a lot more mechanically crunchy. But yeah, like if you want to do is like, yeah, I'm setting up a campfire for the middle of the night because it's cold. I don't have anything to light it. It lights. Minor effect, not really probable. So, you're making a few small checks. But then later on, it's like, oh, well, this, this army's coming at me. Chain lightning. Oh, wow, you may just stop existing. Yeah. I still think that the people behind Mage the Ascension took a look at Maelstrom and really liked what they saw, because the Maelstrom is basically Paradox Backlash right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there were no real mechanics on what you do. You just simply said, yeah, this happens. And the game master goes, okay, make these rolls. That's it. It's like, you don't roll for damage. You say, yeah, this person bursts into flames and dies. Okay. There's no damage check or anything like that. It's just, yeah, he bursts into flames and he dies if you can pull off the roll. The injury system for that game was absolutely brutal. Every time you took a hit, that's a separate number you keep track of. Your injuries heal individually and you check for infection for each one. Well, it's the Tudor period. Medicine? What's that?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're going to consult the stars to see whether you're going to live or not.
And the character classes were basically like beggars and merchants and all the kind of mundane things. The 2 exceptions being the mage and the assassin. Yeah.
I mean, being a mage sounds pretty hard because you try to do basically anything. It's like, well, it's magic. Of course, it's not naturally going to happen. The chance that you just die right now.
Yeah, which is why you go for coincidental effects. the wheel on the wagon just happens to come
Wind.
off at this point, roll down the
Yeah.
street, and strike this guy in the head and kills him.
Yeah. Wind might be easy to do. It's like, yeah, a breeze could blow along right now. Maybe it'll be 20 miles an hour.
We have a character that every time they enter the scene, the wind picks up.
It's true.
Yeah.
Or uses her powers.
Mm-hmm.
And can always find a Subway sandwich in a garbage can whenever she wants.
She can.
Oh gosh, I still like the thing with Kat's character getting delayed again and again and again. She has a flaw that if there's any test of intellect, she winds up kind of pausing and has to try to fix it. So she's trying to get a person's laptop to bring back to the shrine. She finds a book of Sudoku puzzles there. So she spends a couple of hours on that. Then on the way home, she's on a bus and somebody spills a box of Rubik's Cubes all across the floor. So she winds up with one of the Rubik's Cubes after helping pick them all up. And then on the way down the street, this store is doing trivia. It's like one after the other. And she's like, what's going on? Yeah, somebody was actually trying to stall her indefinitely.
She did eventually make it there.
Yeah, yep. That was fun.
I actually have a question, right? On system design, right? What are your guys' favorite exploration systems, right?
Define.
So like I've played in a lot of RPGs, but a lot of the exploration systems are oftentimes like randomly generated cities, encounters, and a bunch, and then sometimes you have right, management of resources or rations or like all of that kind of stuff. But like other than those and maybe just perception checks and stealth checks and like that typical thing, what are your guys' favorite exploration systems about like finding a new location, wandering through it, and discovering things rather than just combat or like, I don't know, like.
Okay, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So
Ryutama.
Okay. Yeah.
So Ryutama is my choice. They actually break down the journey, like the day's journey, into steps. You make a chapter for each step. If you succeed, you describe how you succeeded. If you failed, you describe how you failed. And it all meshes really nicely into giving you the feel of we're working together on an exploration. Everyone has their role to play to make the party itself, work together and survive. And it's very light but elegant. You're saying, Josh? Yeah,
Yeah. I was just gonna clarify, like, so you're talking about like exploring a location as opposed to like travel or like overland exploration.
Travel, you typically know where you're going, right? Or at least like to an certain extent. Let's say that you're coming up on some strange ruins of like a language or a past civilization that you haven't heard before, or maybe you're role playing as a group of archaeologists that are looking through this place, right? They have sort of the destination in mind, but they don't know what they're looking for. They're going to check every nook and cranny. They're going to see what they can find. They're going to investigate what they can, right? Based off a lot of checks. There's even some room of Call of Cthulhu / like other like investigation mystery kind of stuff in there as well.
Okay, so not like a planned dungeon, but more like this is a location. There's probably some information here that we need. We're looking for something. We don't know exactly what it is. There's clues here for us. How do we get that? How does a GM run that without like over prepping? Maybe.
It could also be, right. I mean, it's a less of a dungeon, which is more specifically level design, right? The dungeon is like level design. How can you like make an environment, right, that the players can go through that can have fun in? Does that make sense?
Yep, no, makes sense.
Yep.
I do it by the seat of my plans.
Yeah, my first reaction is I'll just run it in D&D. I'd run it as a skill challenge, right? So I would know the information. I might know some places or the specific place that they're trying to get to. And I would just tell them, okay, goal of this challenge is to get to the place and find the information tell me how you do that. And I actually came up with a system inspired by, I haven't actually played Blades in the Dark, but the clock system from it gave me this idea to essentially insert that into skill challenges where you have an ongoing threat meter, and it's like, what is the threat level of the environment? If you're stealthing, it's, you know, the enemy alarm system. If you're going through a volcano, how active is the region you're currently in? That sort of thing. So you could do something like that where it's like, I don't know, it's a haunted place. How active are the ghosts? And so if they fail, then it triggers the, like, okay, you're getting closer to danger. And so the players are aware of that. Maybe some spookier things start happening as you shift through these different levels. But you don't have to be like, yeah, I've mapped out this whole thing and this thing is here and this thing is here. It's just, they tell you how they're doing it. And then as they fail skill checks, then things happen. I guess that's how I would do it in D&D. But yeah, I could see
like Call of Cthulhu, honestly.
If you take a look at the games produced by Sign Nominee, things like Worlds Without Number, Stars Without Number, Godbound, the upcoming Cities Without Number, which is their cyberpunk setting. One of the things he likes to do is he makes charts, lots of charts. And basically it's, if you don't have the prep time, you fill in this stuff, do a couple of dice rolls, and everything is nice and laid out for you with some decent detail and stuff, and then you can just pick it up from there. He tries to make it setting agnostic so that you can use it with any game engine. And I've found that I don't use them usually because I can, come up with stuff like within an instant. But with the game master who wants to have a little bit of the prep time and, wants to get inspired, I find those charts to be incredibly useful.
I have an easy time coming up with all components except names. Names,
yes.
I can't do names.
Google is your friend. Look at the culture, ask Google to give you a naming system for that culture, and you'll usually get what you want.
So with my system, my planned exploration is a group roll. They'll each roll dice based on a stat and a skill, just like they would, for themselves. But the number of successes that the group gets, so they can get 0 successes all the way up to, possibly 10 if there's 5 players. So I have a chart that I will make, for the game. And every one of those possible number of successes will have something attached to it. So if they get 5 successes on their travel roll or their exploration roll, I'll go down and be like, okay, so 5 successes is this. And, it can be, something like, we've just discovered a brand new dungeon to the entire group gets, luck or favor, whichever system I decide to go with. And everybody gets, some of that, resource to use on their next roll.
I got a question for the group of you. D20, let's default to D20, but this more or less applies to any game engine. What is the upper level you're comfortable game mastering? Because I've heard players, game masters say, I stop at level 5, I stop at level 10, I stop at level 12.
I don't stop.
Yes. Yeah.
I might stop at level 20. Epic level stuff for 3.5 gets pretty insane, but I have run stuff at that level. It's a very different experience, I think. For 3.5 specifically, my experience with gameplay has been it shifts very much away from combat at higher levels, because combat is just, we either win or we die. Like, there's not an in between. And it's going to happen really fast, either one way or the other, unless the GM spends a lot of time to come up with something interesting. So it's a lot more information gathering. How prepared are we for combat? How, what do we know about this world-ending threat that we're, dealing with, or plain, universe-ending threat, right? And so we'll spend entire sessions where we aren't really playing D&D anymore, right? We're using our skills. We use our skills a lot. But we have these highly combat optimized characters, and we don't use them for combat.
Yeah. Well, see, I
so
think that should be normal for
interesting.
Dungeons and Dragons or most games like that. It's like you're going someplace, you're going to check out these runes. Well, what can you learn about these runes? You're going to this other place. Well, what do we know about this thing? What do we know about these monsters? Like the first thing you should do whenever you're about to go out on an adventure is you hit the local library and find out as much as you
Sure.
freaking can beforehand.
Yeah, but you're not spending like 3 months of real life time researching stuff for in-game.
Yeah. So if I were running hero system, it's not really a problem, right? Hero system's designed for ultra powerful characters, right? Because it's you're superheroes.
Yep.
So yeah, you just balance the game differently for cosmic level adventures.
I will say
personally don't prefer to run at cosmic scales, but I absolutely could if I needed to.
I think 4th edition, I didn't feel that for. The thing I didn't like about 4th edition was that it scales infinitely. Like one of my favorite things about 5e is that as a DM, I don't have to come up with new difficulty levels for every level increase. It's like, yeah, your things didn't just go up with your level number, so it's not like everything just ticks up by 1, which technically, yeah, that's the thing you can do, but I prefer 10 is always a normal difficulty, 15 is always slightly hard, 20 is going to be pretty hard. You can cheese things and you can get to over 30 at level 1 in 5e, and it's easier at higher levels, but you always kind of know that these numbers are roughly what to expect for a range.
Have you ever played 1st or 2nd edition?
So I think technically my first game was 2nd edition, but that was in elementary school, and then I didn't play for a while. So
once you hit about 11th level, most of the numbers stop. You'll get between 1 and 3 hit points for every level afterwards. Your THAC0 might adjust up to a certain point, but nothing else changes.
Yeah, but I like getting new features and things, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
I like that it expands beyond that. I just think that the whole, I don't know, the illusion of, our numbers went up, but all their numbers went up, and the game is basically the same, just makes the game overly complex. It doesn't need to be that complicated. And I get that it's sort of necessary to an extent, because as you get more bonuses in your abilities, and it's like relative to the small numbers that you're normally working with, now you're actually way more powerful than you were. So like +3 at level 20 is not the same thing as +3 at level 5, whereas in 5e it kind of is, sort of. Yeah, not exactly, but sort of.
2 of the adventures I actually have. One is Drums on Fire Mountain, highly racist game, but it was for the expert set for D&D. One of the rooms that the PCs encounter has over 50 sturges in it. The adventures for levels 3 to 6. One of the rooms you go into no, it's not a puzzle. It is a straight path over a chasm, which is a sturge nest.
Right, but it's a puzzle. It's not a combat encounter you're expected to just go into and survive without some.
No, it is a thing that you're supposed to go in and hope you survive. That's exactly what it is. I took out a 36th level Cavalier with it. One of the later rooms has over 200 orcs in it. You're expected to probably fight them if you don't sneak.
But I guess what I'm saying is it's a puzzle in that you should be coming up with a different way to get through it than fighting them, right? Like combat is not the solution necessarily, or if it is, you better be bringing some bombs with you.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, and this was a thing that happens with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons as well, is that there is no sense of balance or scale in the game. Like they say, you can run into a group of kobolds as a random encounter. The number of kobolds that could show up is between 10 to 200. The game master rolls that before the encounter starts with no thought of what level the PCs are or what they're capable of or anything like that. This is the encounter. What the hell are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Ideally,
the games back then were designed a little differently.
Oh, very different.
They were not built with the intention that you would necessarily have the same people going through the same adventure every week, right? They were meant originally as pickup games where you could have, I brought my character, I brought my character, I brought my character. We played different games at different times. And then you just happen to be together today going through this dungeon. Nobody knows what you can do except for you.
But see, I didn't mind that. It's like, okay, you go to the words. There is a kobold encampment. There's 75 kobolds. The 3 of us are level 5. What are we going to do? We're avoiding that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It
Or-
can't be, oh, you walk into an encampment. Oh, how many kobolds are there? Oh, it turns out there's actually 200 of them. Guess you're just gonna die now.
No, but
Wow.
my sister does this annoying thing that tends to work more often than not. It's like you come to a kobold encampment. There's 200 kobolds. What do? I walk in. All the kobolds are looking at you. I ask to speak with the chieftain. And that's what she does. And then it's
Sure.
like, okay, so make your checks. Oh, you passed your checks. Now we have kobold allies after 20 minutes of role play.
Yeah.
What the heck?
That's great. Yeah. And that's why, like, I think a random encounter table, even in 5e, shouldn't account for player level, right? Oh, there's a green dragon flying through the forest. You're level 1 PCs. What are you going to do?
Yep.
It found you. What are you going to do? Like, you can't fight it. You probably can't run away from it. You really have to talk your way out of the scenario. So I think that's totally fine to do.
I was
So
running.
a lot of
Go ahead, Alex.
So a lot of like I would normally agree with you, but there's a growing mentality among like a bunch of gamers where if they see like a challenge or an encounter in front of them, they think it's appropriate level, and so
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
This is
Right,
a
so
level
they will-
a session 0 conversation, right? What kind of
Yeah.
game are you expecting to run?
My general
Um,
belief is the world is not fair. You're going to have to learn how to run away from time to time. You really have to do a threat assessment with any encounters. Zed is in my Pathfinder campaign. The PC part, I think you started at level 2 when you went into the to the Cursed Forest, right?
2 or 3?
The adventures for levels 5 to 12. I dropped the PCs into this. Didn't tell them. They went into the woods. They handled themselves very well through the entire thing. And the last battle just blew me away with how creative the PCs were. But that's just it. I mean, if the PCs weren't thinking ahead, if they weren't being careful, it could have gone south so fast. It has a threat chart based on PC activity. The forest itself is all basically one mind. When the forest wakes up, everybody dies. The PCs learned this fairly early by figuring some stuff out, and they became very, very careful, and that saved their bacon at the end. And it was really amazing to watch. But it could have gone the entire other way where they didn't do any research, they didn't think things through, and then they get to deep enough, and the forest turns around and goes, "Yeah, so I'm dropping earthquakes. The trees are grabbing you, the animals are attacking you, and a lightning bolt comes down and hits you." The end.
Yeah, I definitely ran a campaign that ends like that.
Now, it does help that our campaign is geared towards our characters are supposed to become epic over time.
I'm running a Mythic Pathfinder campaign.
Yeah.
A Mythic level 2.
So our characters have some abilities that you wouldn't normally have if you weren't in a Mythic campaign.
True, but again, you were low level compared to the threat, which
Yes.
is, and you got your first Mythic level inside the adventure, so.
Mhm.
There's a game that there's an adventure I ran for 2nd edition AD&D. I also converted it to 5th edition. It's called Throne of Bloodstone, an adventure for levels 16 through 100. I ran a 16th level party through it. The encounter with the White Dragon, which was the first mini boss, almost wiped the party out.
Oh, hey, I was in that one.
Yes, I believe
that.
you were. Yeah, the White Dragon. It's like, okay, so I cast the Iron Fortress. Okay, we go inside. All right, there's a blizzard and stuff going on, and everything's very slick. Oh, we hear this thing outside. I open the door. Dragon's just sitting out there. Blast right into the room. We had a kobold bard, and yes, this is one of those bard stories. The PCs encounter a Balor. I seduce the Balor, says the kobold bard. I'm like, sure, make the roll. He rolls fairly well. It's like, okay, the Balor is interested in him. Calls the kobold over. The kobold's like, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to go over and stuff like this. The Balor says, hey, how's it going? Puts his head on him and gates them both to the abyss. Exit bard.
I will note that I was playing a wizard cleric in that one, and you asked all the religious people if they wanted to consult this kobold before he did this, and we all just went, nope. We're like, nope, let him do it.
Yeah. I was running a 1st edition, just actually this last year, I ran a 1st edition AD&D campaign. We were supposed to stream it. I think we got 2 sessions off. The PCs are in this trench heading towards the Lich's stronghold and run into these 2 slave girls. The slave girls, yeah, he's doing this and doing this, and there's these monsters and this kind of stuff, and we escape, but we're kind of lost. We don't know what to do. The PCs are like, oh, we feel so sorry for you. Here, I'm going to summon some steeds. You guys get on the back. These will take you right back to our fortress and stuff, and you'll be safe there. They go off. A little bit later, like, so just as a side view, a pair of succubi show up at your fortress and start taking over. Wait, what? Yeah, those were succubi. Wait, what? Yeah.
So to answer your question on like what the highest level that I would run a campaign at or run at, I've run level 25 plus, right?
Nice.
Several times, right? In Pathfinder 1E, right? What I learned in doing several times is that there's a lot of what I found is that the die rolls, right? We can talk about there's other ways to make it cool, but in terms of the die rolls and the stats, it feels like all of the characters can just be min-max so that the die roll, the D20 system doesn't work anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a stealth check that is so high that it is impossible for a min-maxed awareness character.
Cough, cough, 40, cough, cough, my sister.
Yeah. So that's an example. So it's like there's no chance in it, right? There's supposed to be a D20 system, but there's no more chance in it, despite like maybe a nat 1 or a nat 20. Like even then, that's a house rule, right?
Yeah.
And then like you get monks with that, since their AC scales off of their wisdom, their dex, and then they also have armor bonuses because they can have magical armor that like does a few other things.
There's a few other things,
there's a way to min-max a monk such that once they get those stats that they need at that level, they just become untouchable to anything. But then you get this wizard who is doing the shenanigans, right? And they're all broken in their one specific way, but the mechanics, they no longer match the game that you are playing. So I would rather use that in a different system, right? So I would not do a Pathfinder level 25 campaign in Pathfinder 1E. I would do it in a different system, either like thematic. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you may as well leave the realm of Pathfinder and go into something like the hero system and start making epic level heroes in something where you have more control over the mechanics.
Hey, Zed, I'm wondering, are you wanting to run a hero system for us at some point? You brought it up a lot.
I don't really. So the way I GM is pretty labor intensive just because of how I GM, not because the hero system demands it necessarily. So I don't typically feel like running games anymore. But
I'd
maybe
play.
I mean, you could convince me perhaps, but
would you like
how many games do I run in a week again? Oh yeah, 5.
Yeah.
And I play in 2.
Like I said, it's not because of the system, it's because of how I prefer to do game mastering.
I think Zed's in like 3 of my campaigns.
I prefer to build a lot of my players' characters story, their own story into the setting of the game, right? So I want my players to build detailed backstories so that I can draw elements from those and fit them into the game. That takes work. So
if I was ever gonna run a hero game, I've got a couple, not necessarily that system, but a different system. I would have every character have an origin story, written kind of like a comic book, but that's just me.
I will say for the record, as Zed's game master, you're a power gamer. I will. You're definitely a power gamer. It is fun watching you do stuff. I'm just like, oh, what do I do about this? Okay. But the thing is, at least you make your characters interesting, which is what I think is the qualifier for being a good power gamer. You play with the group, you don't try to break the campaign, and you make interesting characters. You do those, like, if you make interesting characters, you work with the group and you work with the game master, there should never be a problem.
Yeah, I try to give other players good advice if they ask for it too. So
Yeah. One of the things I've always mentioned when it comes to power gamers is that they're not the enemy, because for my opinion here, a good game master lets the player excel where they want their character to excel. That's not where you challenge them. If somebody is like, well, I'm a really good swordsman, you don't make somebody who just blocks all his attacks. You make an opponent which challenges him somewhere else on his sheet.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just a matter of escalation and everybody gets left behind. I keep on hearing these game masters is like, well, I have to throw bigger threats at the PCs to challenge him. And I'm like, maybe he doesn't want to be challenged that way. If you don't challenge him there, you let him excel, the other players can still be involved because you just give them more enemies to fight. As opposed to like, well, I put in this, challenge rating 40 monster, which would kill anyone but him in a single hit. Well, where's the fun in that?
Yeah, there can be that can be a problem sometimes just from a storytelling perspective of, well, yeah, so you're fighting these creatures and everyone else is having trouble, but this character never has trouble until the entire party goes down, and then it's just them soloing this encounter. Unfortunately, that's not fun for the rest of the players.
Exactly.
So that's where I usually see the problem happening. I'm the kind of player who I'm a power gamer. I end up breaking things no matter what I do. But I always start my characters with, wouldn't it be cool if I was I have 2 3.5 characters right now that one of them has been NPC-ified because he's not in the game. He started out as, I'd like to play a character that wields a scythe.
Nice.
I don't know if scythes are any good.
Yes.
They do high crit damage, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
He ends up being a rogue cleric that, gets high sneak attack damage, is also a caster that can buff himself tremendously. He has the permanency spell through a domain. And so now he's got all these permanent buffs on him. And it's just like, I had to limit myself to be like, that's not a fair spell for me to permanency on myself. Yeah, it works. I can have all my attacks be touch attacks. I'm not going to do it. But literally I can't hit myself.
Yeah.
Because my AC is over 50 and my attack bonus isn't over 30. So
in my friend's Pathfinder campaign, I made a fire genasi, paladin spellless, with I think the Empyrean archetype. This is for Pathfinder First Edition. So his thing was he was strong and he fought defensively. By the end of the campaign, his defensive armor class was 44. I think we were level 12. And he had a strength of, I think it was 26, and was able to lift 6 tons.
Yeah,
right.
That was his. And the thing is, in combat, he was I jump ahead and I start laying waste to everything in my path. But any other time, he's this naive kid who spent 12 years in an oasis that doesn't exist in the desert, being taught by legendary figures who never actually existed. That's his backstory. So we're on a riverboat, and these guards show up, and they're like, "Okay, well, we're going to have to, do a check to see what things you have here. We're going to have to tax you when you come here." So one of the PCs is like, "Well, how much is the charge?" "Well, let's see. How much do you have?" And so the paladin is looking at them and going, "Well, don't you have a specific number? I mean, we can do this, this, this." And they're like, "You don't know what a shakedown is, do you?" The paladin looks at one of the other PCs. "What's a shakedown?" "Oh, it's this." "Oh." Paladin looks back at them, just pulls out this huge khopesh, bang. "So we are willing to pay for using the dock." And the guards just kind of look at that, then looks at the dragon head that's on the back of the boat, then looks at him again, and then goes, "It'll be 3 silver." We got followed by a river dragon at one point. So he takes the head of the dragon that he killed earlier, holds it over the back of the boat, and just does to the river dragon. The river dragon just turns around and goes away.
Yeah.
It's the role play that makes it interesting. I mean, power game all you want. Just make it interesting for the players and the game master.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to comfort level, I'm willing to play our game master any level. but I came up with something one time as my players hit level 20.
Mhm.
I told them that every level that they took after 20, they wouldn't get hit dice. Their numbers wouldn't go up, but they could take one feature from any class they wanted.
Oh, nice.
So every level they got a feature from a class, from a different class, and we only got to 22, but we already had some people taking some really cool stuff. We had
That sounds so much better.
yeah, we had a fighter that he's like, you know what? I want spell casting. I'm like, cool, you get spell casting, first level, and from this point on, it will level up as if it was its own class. And then, like his next level, he's like, okay, well, since that's doing that, I want spell casting in cleric too. I'm like, cool, go for it. So he had level 1, wizard spells, and level 1 cleric stuff. And if he had kept going, when he hit the 3rd level, he would have had level 2 wizard spells and gotten something else.
Yeah.
And so,
I've run Amber Diceless, Lords of Gossamer Shadow, Scion, and Godbound. So, and I told you what happened with the illegal AD&D group. So I'm very used to high level play. It usually doesn't bother me. So it's like, I prefer starting campaigns at level 1. That is always my thing. Is I always consider level 1 and level 2 to be the formative time for players, because when their characters are vulnerable, the events that they come into kind of shapes them from that point forward. If they're too experienced at the start, they don't get those kind of hang-ups. My wife, for 2nd edition, her thief started off with 1 hit point at level 1. At level 2, she had 2 hit points. She was the forward scout. She actually, she was extra cautious, and she walked into a werewolf village and got out of there intact at level 1. And ever since then, her character was just extremely cautious, even when she actually started having hit points. My sister rolled up a cleric.
Me.
My sister rolled up a cleric, strength 3, constitution 5, wisdom 18. The game master was like, you could re-roll those, She's like, no. So we had this adorable little waif-like cleric riding a pony with a staff being her only item, and that's to keep her standing. She was the only survivor in the first adventure. The PCs got wiped out by rock grubs. Yeah.
Yeah, my character in your Pathfinder game is very much of that vein.
Yeah. In the Pathfinder campaign, we have a kobold with a charisma of 3. He's autistic. That's how we did it. He has trouble communicating with people. He stutters. He's very direct-minded, and it's like, yep, that's fine. He's not stupid. He's got a wisdom score. It's just he thinks on a different level and has trouble communicating his thoughts. That works.
My character's the one with 5 constitution.
Yeah. And no self-esteem whatsoever.
No self-esteem. His self-esteem is in his familiar.
Yeah. I love that familiar. It's just, he has a talking monkey.
Are you role-playing Full Metal Alchemist there, Father?
Well, the monkey doesn't talk. The monkey speaks with his hands. It knows sign language.
Okay. Well, maybe you don't get the reference. That's okay.
No.
But yeah, it's. I do very much enjoy game mastering. My mind is always active because I'm autistic, so it's like my mind's always racing at 1,000 miles per hour. I have DID, which just does not help that whatsoever, because I have multiple people speaking at the same time and thinking at 1,000 miles per hour in my head. Game mastering allows me to kind of focus everything down and put all of that out for other people to deal with. Yeah, deal with. That's how I put it. You must deal with my problems. But yeah, I do enjoy game mastering, hence game mastering 5 days a week and playing in 2 campaigns.
It makes you a good host, to be honest.
Oh, God, yeah. One of the things, I find that I can game master at the drop of a hat with no preparation, because I basically have a network which is communicating with each other and coming up with ideas and stuff for me. So it's like, yeah, I need this. Okay, click, 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 click. Okay, everything's in place. Oh, I need this. Click, 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 click. The only game I have extensive notes on is my Trinity campaign, which is Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Power Rangers in the same universe as one team, hence Trinity. I write out like 10 to 12 page plot arcs for the players because it's like, this is the kind of campaign that needs that. Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, I can do it off the cuff. But for a game like this, I want to give the players interesting stuff. So I've put these little subplots and everything in. And the PCs are working with Starscream way too much.
So I think maybe someone's already mentioned that they did do this. So I ran a D&D game where I also had some other players play important NPCs in the world at the time. So they were playing as like noble houses. And so they kind of controlled the politics of what was happening in the world plot that I was running. And that affected the game. Have any of you done something like that?
I ran a Vampire First Edition campaign where the PCs got to play neonates and elders. So they got to make their best beginning character. They got to make their elders. The elders got to do the elder shenanigans, and the neonates got to do the neonate shenanigans. And ran actually fairly well.
I had plans for a Star Trek game where I was going to run Star Trek Adventures. And the players were all going to play, crew on a single Federation ship. But because they were going to be dealing with the different major powers in the Alpha Quadrant, I also was planning for each one to take one of those major powers, the Romulans, the Klingons, the Cardassians, and make decisions each week before the game actually started on what they were doing in this major buildup. And this was going to be an Alpha Quadrant War campaign. So that was the
Dibs
idea.
on Borg.
Yeah, no, the Borg weren't there. Sorry.
No, they're not in the Alpha Quadrant naturally.
They are now. So.
Well, it depends on what time frame you're talking about.
That's true. The game that I was running, I went ahead and ran a game previous to the one I was talking about, where they were actually at the Shackleton Expanse. And I put a race of augmented humans in there that were descendants of Soong. And they had thrived there. And they had technology that was beyond warp drive. And so it really scared one of my players who was really Star Trek savvy when they got readings of a G-type star suddenly going to warp. And they went, what? I'm like, yes, the star is going to reach, this star base. I can't remember what number it was, in 3 days. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yes, and you're reading a structure around it. And they're like, so these people just jumped a Dyson sphere, is what you're saying. And I'm like, maybe. But it turned out what they were doing is they had a technology that turned a G-type star into what was essentially a portal into subspace, and their ships just rode subspace, allowing them to traverse the galaxy much faster. However, they were also battling the Borg, and so the XBs, the X-Borg, that had been liberated by Janeway and Voyager, they were also being targeted because this race was just destroying them indiscriminately. And so they actually came to the Federation for help. And I thought the best plot twist was that they were being led by Jennifer Sisko.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. When Sisko left her body, the Borg beamed it off the ship and assimilated her. Yeah. And she became an X-Borg. And so she was looking for, Benjamin. And unfortunately, right now he's with the Prophets. So. Yeah.
Hey, Zed, you don't know anything about Soong, do you? Soong is in my Trinity campaign. The PCs rescued him.
Really?
Yeah. He was unknowingly he was working with Cobra. The Cobra had stolen some Transformer protoforms. Had their cloning technology where they make artificial humans, And then soon, of course, is trying to make the perfect humans.
Mhm.
So this all got melded together into somebody called Cobra Khan,
Oh, God.
which the PCs wound up having to fight. I had fun with him.
Yeah. Well, he got away.
Oh yeah, he did. The PCs are going to have to deal with him in the future.
Well, it depends.
Yep.
He might just launch himself into space and wait for, a couple hundred years.
Oh no. He's
Our
trying to take
adventures
over the Cobra.
happen in space at some point, right?
Oh yeah, it is. The PCs are going to Cybertron sooner rather than later.
Are they
It's in
gonna-
orbit just past Pluto.
So you know that the Enterprise Transformer is canon, right?
Yes, I am fully aware.
Okay. Just quick question. Yeah.
The things that are canon, we have Ghostbusters being canon.
That's cool.
Because the Ghostbusters have dealt with the Transformers. Ghostbusters have dealt with the TMNT, so the TMNT are canon. Doctor Who has crossed over with Star Trek, so that's canon. We've had two PCs that have had to deal with the Men in Black. One PC's had to deal with the Doctor. One PC had to deal with the Borg. So
Pink's had to deal with everything.
yeah. So I'm having fun with this. The PCs haven't encountered 90% of what's out there. They've encountered somebody from the Visionary world.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you remember Victoria Vanderbilt from one of my other campaigns, she's from the Visionary planet. So she's the party spellcaster NPC who's been teaching at least two of the PC spells, which the Transformers don't like because Visionary magic rots Transformer shells. That's from the Transformers versus Visionaries comic from IDW. So I was like, yeah, every time a Visionary casts a spell, the Transformers in the party get the heebie-jeebies. Yeah. Oh, E20 is so good. I so want them to bring in Mask and Visionaries as official supplements.
I feel like they're going to that and My Little Pony, aren't they?
Yeah, I already have the PDF for that. It's an interesting system. The rules are that Discord, first of all, knows the mechanics and can cancel them anytime he wants, and knows every spell. Not every spell in My Little Pony, every spell in any RPG whatsoever.
Well, so
That tracks.
you realize he was voiced by John Delancey.
Of course.
He is Q in both Star Trek and in My Little Pony as Discord.
Of course.
So
Yep.
of course he does.
Yep. I took a look at the magic system in MLP. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit what I need. But apparently one of the future source books is going to have, I believe they're going to have cybernetics and augmentation in the G.I. Joe source book, and they're going to have magic in the Power Ranger source book coming out. So I'm looking forward to this.
Since Doctor Who has crossed over with My Little Pony as well, you kind of got
Dr.
have him in
Who's.
there. Yeah.
Oh, he's there.
Okay.
Pink's met him. At least one instance of him.
Yeah.
We had another character briefly who had actually traveled with him.
Yeah, the PCs are going to be encountering the TMNT in a future part of the current season. Yeah. Oh, speaking of working with players for trying to get stuff done, sometimes game masters will, I need this to happen type stuff. So what I've done with my game is I'll tell the players ahead of time, like, okay, for this adventure, if you let yourself get captured, this is something that you can get as a benefit from it. And then I leave it to the players. Does one of the players want to get captured? It makes things interesting. We'll see what happens. Or I'll do a cutscene every now and then. So it's like, yeah, the PCs are doing this. Cutscene. Here's something that's happening off to the side, which will lead up to something else.
Mhm.
Yeah. So with the current adventure, the PCs are going into a Cobra Antarctic base. And the cutscene was somebody floating inside a tank of kind of greenish water, looking at the engineers outside and having webbed fingers. And we'll see what the PCs do with that.
I have a question with the Power Ranger side of things.
Yeah.
How liberal are the rules with the morphing grid?
They're not liberal. They do have a lot that the morphing grid can do, and they have a lot of suggestions, and the expansion gave a lot more. For this setting, the morphing grid is connected to Transformer Sparks.
Okay.
And they're connected to something else as well. I'm trying to remember what. Yeah, like the transformation matrix and stuff is also connected to the morphing grid. So, and it's connected to.
Well, there's
what
the
it is.
Zeo crystal.
Yeah, the Zeo crystals. Yeah, I'm using the Power Rangers from the most recent like the live action movie that was kind of serious and stuff. I very much enjoyed that movie, so that's kind of what I'm doing. They don't have those power coins. They have like almost like a quartz crystal of a specific color, and that's what they use. And their suits basically grow out of their bodies.
You once asked me if I was interested in that one, and I said absolutely not. However, I'm starting to have a character idea, and so I'd like to talk to you about it after stream, if you don't mind.
Cool. We have an opening for Green Ranger, White Ranger, Gold Ranger, Silver Ranger, or Shadow Ranger, if you want to go for a Ranger side of things.
It would kind of be Silver, I would think, but
We can talk.
Yeah, let's discuss, because it'll be slightly different than a Ranger, but using the Ranger rules.
I think I'm going to head out here because it is 4 a.m.
Oh wow, yeah.
By all means.
This is about usually when we wrap up anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should probably wrap anyways.
Does anybody want to plug their stuff a little bit further before we go?
I mean, I'm always happy to talk about my stuff when I get the chance. So yeah, I mean, Wormlings is coming up. We talked about that earlier. It's a super cute, adorable, wholesome tabletop RPG.
It looks awesome, yeah.
Targeting all ages. I mean, I run it for a group of 20 somethings, and people have run it for their 4-year-olds. I run it for kids at conventions, so it's been great. Everyone's been able to pick it up pretty quickly, and everyone's enjoyed it so far. So I'd say that's pretty positive feedback. If I could ask for feedback on it.
Yep.
I also do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and so aside from the Stray TTRPG that I come up with, that's actually primarily what I designed for.
Where can they find you?
Yeah, I was about to say you can find me pretty much everywhere as Lone Colossus Games. My website is lonecolossusgames.com. I'm on Twitter as Lone Colossus, and then Facebook and Instagram, Lone Colossus Games.
LONG?
LONE.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Want to make sure that people knew that, because it sounded like long, not lone. I wanted to make sure.
Lone
Yes.
Colossus Games. Yep.
Yeah.
Any relation to Shadow of the Colossus?
No, actually, that's a game that I would love to play, but I've never played.
Yeah. So, Alex, anything that you want to throw out there for the audience?
I'll abstain this time. Right.
Okay. Next time.
I'll abstain this time, and next time, I'm still working on a bunch of systems, but my Kickstarter has effectively ended. Hasn't fired, unfortunately. So I'm going to look into the crowdfunder thing. I'm being helped over there. Once it is closer on that, then I'll have a lot more stuff to share. But until then, right, I have a lot of different subsystems that I want to add.
Okay. Where can people find you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm very much invisible, which is my problem right now. But the itch.io page that I gave you previously is the best place that you can find me.
Okay. Then.
So okay. Other than that, but yeah, I'll be looking at your game, Josh, and yeah. Do you have any like sample material that I can see of it or
it's
find
actually
of it?
on the playtest version is on itch. If you search Wormlings RPG itch, you'll probably find it.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.
Thank
Thank you for joining us.
See ya.